Chapter 2157. 2157 was at loggerheads. The divine dragons roared. The 9-winged divine dragons roared at the sky at the same time. They rushed out of the water and flew into the voids. Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne with the experts of the Dragon Palace following behind him. There were a total of 20,000 members of the Dragon Palace. They exuded a terrifying aura. The divine dragons soared into the sky and their roars resounded across the entire planet. Those are the powerhouses of the Dragon Palace. What are they trying to do? The 9 divine beasts are holding onto the Dragon King while the powerhouses of the Dragon Palace are behind them. What are they trying to do? On the planet, countless people raised their heads and looked into the void. Their faces were filled with shock. Are they trying to escape? Some people muttered as their eyes flickered. No, they stopped in the void. Soon they found something was wrong. 9 giant creatures that were at least 10,000 meters in size stopped in the void. Their huge dragon wings were flapping slightly. More than 20,000 experts of the Dragon Palace stood in the void. They stared at the place in front of them as if they were waiting. They are waiting for the Thunder God Lord. They are waiting for the arrival of the eternal Thunder God Lord and the others. Suddenly, a sharp and shocked voice sounded, causing the expressions of some people around to change slightly. The Dragon Palace is going to fight the eternal Thunder God? The Thunder God Lord is personally on the expedition. This is an eternal God Lord. The Dragon Palace has the confidence to resist the attack of the God Lord. The Dragon Palace must have some trump card. Otherwise, how could they be so arrogant and directly welcome the arrival of the Thunder God Lord and the others in the void? Everyone on the Northern Expedition Free Trade Planet was discussing in shock. At this moment, they understood clearly that the Dragon Palace was prepared to fight against the Eternal Thunderbolt. If the Dragon Palace really managed to block it, then the entire northern region will be changed. Some people's eyes sparkled as they muttered. Their faces were filled with shock. Dragon King, according to the information we received, the Eternal Thunderbolt should arrive within an hour. In the void, Prime Minister Gui came to Wang Xian's side and reported to him. Dragon King, I have ordered Yaoxia to attack the Steel Planet. The corner of Enlai's mouth curled up slightly. His entire body was filled with fighting spirit as he reported to Wang Xian. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly. His gaze was fixed on the void in front of him as he waited quietly. In the vast void, 2 gigantic thunder-horned divine beasts were pulling a thunder battle valley as they galloped. On the battle valley, many experts were standing on it. At the front, the Thunder God Lord was leaning on his throne, staring at the front with cold eyes. Suddenly, Thunder God, who was standing beside the Thunder God Lord, was slightly stunned and took out his communication stone plate. When he saw the information on it, he slightly narrowed his eyes. Lord God Lord, the Dragon Palace is actually waiting for our arrival in the sky above the planet. Thunder God reported to Thunder God Lord in a low voice. Yes. Thunder God Lord's face didn't change at all. This time, he would let the Dragon Palace know, and the entire northern region know the consequences of offending eternal thunder. Cut the weeds and roots, leaving no one alive. Stars flashed one by one, and the speed of the peak deity realm Thunderhorn Divine Beast was extremely terrifying. Master God, we're almost there. After nearly an hour, a Thunder God squinted his eyes and stared forward with killing intent. Rumble! Rumble! The 2 Thunderhorn Divine Beasts pulling the Thunder Battle Valley stared ahead with their huge eyes and roared at the same time. Crackle! At this moment, the entire Thunder Battle Valley was completely covered by lightning. The sound of the lightning covered an area of more than 1,000 kilometers. The 2 peak stage deity-level Thunderhorned Divine Beasts pulled the Thunder Battle Valley as if they were stepping out of the wilderness. The sound spread throughout the surrounding void space. They're here. Hiss, what a terrifying aura. 2 divine beasts pulling a thunder valley. At this moment, On the northern expedition free trade planet that was tens of millions of kilometers away, everyone's expression changed when they heard the roar and felt the terrifying aura. Tens of billions of people on the planet looked up. Some of them even flew into the void and looked over in astonishment. Two divine beasts at the peak of the godly state of a few thousand meters in size were dragging a valley that was covered by lightning. It was truly shocking. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne. He stood up slowly when he saw the arrival of the eternal thunderclap. He had to be cautious when facing a godly master. He had to take him seriously. He swept his gaze across everyone in eternal thunderclap and looked at the four members with the combat strength at the peak of the godly state. A faint smile appeared on his face. I thought they would have a big battle formation. Now, it seems that eternal thunderclap is only SOSO. Wang Xian stood in front of the dragon throne and looked at the middle-aged man sitting on the divine seat of War Valley. He said faintly. His voice was directly transmitted into the ears of the God Lord and everyone in eternal thunderclap. Impudent. A roar filled with killing intent was emitted from the mouth of a thunder god. Boom, boom, boom. The two thunderhorn divine beasts stared at Wang Xian ferociously and let out a deafening roar. This roar was like the roar of a thunderstorm. A bunch of ants, how dare you waste my time? This is unforgivable. The Thunder God Lord swept his gaze across Wang Xian and the rest. His eyes were filled with contempt as he spoke coldly. When he swept his gaze across the entire planet, he could sense that there was no existence on the same level as him. Without a god-level existence, how dare they provoke his eternal thunderbolt? So powerful. When everyone on the free trade planet heard the God of Thunder's words, their mouths gaped slightly. This was completely disregarding the Dragon Palace. Roar, roar, roar. Roar, roar, roar. When the 9 divine wind dragons heard the roar of the divine beast opposite them, they roared in unison. A wave of dragon might filled the air. Hee hee, even a bunch of ants like us could make the Thunder God Lord come here personally. Looks like the eternal thunderbolt is only SOSO. When Wang Xian heard the contempt of the Thunder God Lord, he said with a faint smile. Tit for tat. The thunder-horned divine beast roared while the divine wind dragon roared. In an instant, waves of terrifying aura surged into the sky. At the center, the airflow seemed to have solidified. Everyone could sense the terrifying atmosphere. The people on the planet below held their breaths as they stared at the battle of the northern region for the century. Crackle. When Wang Xian's voice faded, a terrifying bolt of lightning shot out from the eyes of the Thunder God Lord. He stood up immediately and the purple lightning exploded in the void. The lightning seemed to have teleported and appeared in front of the Dragon Palace a kilometer away in an instant. A bolt of lightning flashed across the entire Dragon Palace. TSK, the Thunder God Lord is really arrogant. Do you really think that we dare to challenge you, the eternal Thunder God, just because we don't have any strength? Beside Wang Xian, the dark blazing demonic dragon laughed coldly when he saw the Thunder God Lord who wanted to wipe them out. He stared at the Thunder God and waved his arm. A ball of darkness engulfed the Thunder God instantly. Chapter 2158. 2158-2158's fame spread far and wide. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Crackle, crackle, crackle. A ball of darkness covered the lightning bolt. The purple lightning bolt struggled violently in the darkness, causing the darkness to change its shape. Slowly, the lightning and darkness dissipated. Seeing someone from the Dragon Palace block the Thunder God Lord's attack, all the experts on the planet were slightly shocked. As expected, the Dragon Palace isn't courting death, but they have a trump card. Everyone thought to themselves as they looked over with flickering eyes. Lord God Lord, that young man should be the one who killed 9 thunder in an instant. When the 2 thunder gods saw that Enlai had actually blocked their Lord God Lord's attack, their expressions tensed up as they stared fixedly at him. However, the Thunder God Lord didn't pay any attention to them. He also stared fixedly at Enlai. His purple pupils shot out a terrifying luster. "It's you, you beast!" A low roar came from his mouth. Everyone could sense the Thunder God Lord's anger and killing intent. "Oh!" The two Thunder Gods were slightly startled as they stared at Enlai. "Dog, watch your words. Don't you see how many Thunder Gods are beside you?" Enlai heard the Thunder God Lord's words and said coldly to him. In front of everyone's eyes, he directly called the Thunder God Lord a dog. In the hundreds of thousands of years, he was probably the first person to do so. What is this situation? When everyone saw this scene, their faces were filled with shock. Some of the people on the planet looked at Enlai, who was standing in front of the dragon throne, their eyes filled with shock. He actually called the Thunder God Lord a dog. And the Thunder God Lord obviously knew that young man. "It's you, Dark Demon Dragon, Dark Demon Dragon." At this moment, the two Thunder Gods guessed Enlai's identity and roared with their eyes wide open. "I didn't expect your dragon palace to be in cahoots with the demon dragon of the Devil Den." One of the Thunder Gods' expression changed slightly as he roared in a stern voice. "Jie, I, Enlai, know that I've committed too many sins. I've abandoned the dark side to join the Dragon King's subordinates and join the Dragon Palace to create a harmonious world. What demon dragon of the Devil Den? In the future, call me the demon dragon of the Dragon Palace. Jie. Enlai smiled and said when he heard the Thunder God's words. "Devil Den? Dark Devil Dragon?" On the planet, everyone heard their conversation and looked shocked. They stared at Enlai. They had never thought that he was the Dark Devil Dragon from the Devil Denver. The Dark Devil Dragon that caused eternal shocking thunder to suffer heavy losses. Abandoning the dark side and joining the Dragon King's side, what's going on? The Dragon Palace subdued the Dark Devil Dragon? Hearing Enlai's words, everyone was stunned. "Dark Demon Dragon, I let you escape last time. This time, I'll hang your head on my eternal divine kingdom." The Thunder God Lord stared at Enlai, his eyes shooting out a terrifying killing intent. Because of this Dark Demon Dragon, Eternal Thunder had lost more than 10 Thunder Gods. They had lost close to 10 million disciples. Furthermore, all the treasures of a planet had been plundered. He had even been injured because of this. However, this time, he decided that even if he had to pay a heavy price, he would still kill them. Crackle, crackle. Violent lightning exploded around him, and a terrifying energy was brewing in his body. Buzz, buzz, buzz. However, at this moment, the communication stone plate on one of the Thunder Gods beside him suddenly trembled non-stop. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately opened the communication stone plate. When he saw the information on it, his expression changed drastically. "Lord God is in trouble. The Steel Planet has been invaded by demonic forces." His expression was extremely unsightly as he growled at the Thunder God Lord in a low voice. "Oh!" The Thunder God Lord turned his head, and a terrifying luster shot out from his eyes. He slowly stared at the dark blazing demon dragon, and his face was slightly malevolent. "Beast, I will kill you within 10 minutes. He roared furiously. There was an explosion in the surroundings and he disappeared instantly. Purple lightning covered his entire body. A thunderbolt that covered thousands of kilometers appeared out of nowhere in the void above him. The thunderbolt seemed as though it was going to destroy the world. It went straight for everyone in the Dragon Palace. Upon seeing this scene, even Wang Xian took a deep breath. How terrifying! At this moment, Enlai, who was at the side, let out a roar. He raised his head and his entire body underwent a terrifying transformation. The dragon head, dragon body, and dragon tail slowly covered his entire body. His blood-red dragon eyes stared at the thunder in the sky. He opened his dragon mouth and spat out a ball of dragon breath. The dark dragon breath flew directly into the sky. At the same time, he swayed his body, which was over 20,000 meters long, and directly attacked the Thunder God Lord. Die for me! The Thunder God Lord waved his hands, and a lightning spear and a lightning hammer intersected together, directly releasing a bolt of intersecting lightning. The lightning attacked Enlai. Jing Lei, do you think I'm the same old man that you bullied the last time? Enlai roared and stretched out his dragon claw. A terrifying black light covered it as he clawed at the lightning. Ka ka ka. The lightning was caught by him. He opened his mouth and spat it out, causing the lightning to dissipate. Although he had used 2 moves to break through the Thunder God Lord's attack, he was already very strong to be able to do this. Oh! When the Thunder God Lord saw this scene, his pupils constricted slightly and an embarrassed expression appeared on his face. He could sense that this devil dragon was much stronger than the last time. Last time, this devil dragon could only flee, but this time, he could contend against it. Damn it. His face revealed an anxious expression. If he could not kill it in a short period of time, then Yao Xie would wreak havoc in the entire Eternal Shocking Thunder. Now that all the Eternal Thunderclap experts were here, the base camp behind them would be turned into ruins. The foundation that had existed for hundreds of thousands of years would be destroyed in an instant. We must settle the battle as soon as possible. The Thunder God Lord was burning with rage. He kill him. Today, let our Dragon Palace experience the eternal thunderclap that has intimidated the northern region for hundreds of thousands of years. At this moment, Wang Xian's voice sounded from below. When he saw eternal thunderclap being restrained by Enlai, he immediately released the order to attack. Enlai was no match for eternal thunderclap. Therefore, he had to make good use of this period of time when he was being restrained. Only in this way would the Thunder God Lord be afraid and yield. Roar roar kill. The group of experts from the Dragon Palace stared at eternal thunderclap and roared furiously. Ao Qi, Ao Xingmu, Ao Qiyan, and the other 4 peak stage godly state members flew directly towards eternal shocking thunder. They carried a terrifying killing intent. Kill. Behind them, the 20,000 members of the Dragon Palace followed closely behind. They were not afraid of challenging eternal shocking thunder. Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne and stared coldly ahead. There were only 4 peak stage godly state experts on the opposite side. He didn't need to make a move. He just needed to sit here and look down. Chapter 2159. 2159-2159's fame spread far and wide. They're fighting. When everyone on the planet saw the disciples of the Dragon Palace attacking eternal shocking thunder, they were shocked. They looked up and stared blankly. Shit. However, at this moment, when the 2 thunder gods of eternal shocking thunder saw the experts of the Dragon Palace attacking them and felt the terrifying power of Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu, Ao Qi, and the berserk dragon species, their expressions changed drastically. The 7 people of Ao Qitian and the others who were the first to rush over were all exuding the aura of peak godly state. The terrifying aura rushed toward them violently. Behind the 7 people, the members of the Dragon Palace also had powerful auras. 7 peak godly state experts, 7 of them are peak godly state experts. One thunder god couldn't help but roar in a low voice. 7 peak godly state experts were no longer something they could withstand. Once the 7 peak godly state experts of the Dragon Palace charged over, eternal thunderclap wouldn't be able to withstand them at all. What? How can the Dragon Palace be so strong? The faces of all the disciples of the Eternal Legion changed slightly. As the most powerful army of eternal thunderclap, they believed that they could resist all the armies in the Endless Region. However, they were definitely no match for the 7 peak godly state forces. However, Eternal Thunderclap had suffered heavy losses and only had 2 thunder gods. Look, the Dragon Palace has 7 peak godly state experts. Hiss, the Dragon Palace is much stronger than Eternal Thunderclap. Eternal Thunderclap only has 2 thunder gods. Eternal Thunderclap is going to be in big trouble. The Thunder God Lord is being held back. They are no match for the Dragon Palace at all. The people on the free trade planet opened their mouths slightly when they heard Thunder God's words. They were dumbfounded. There were 7 peak godly state experts in the Dragon Palace. And this is even before the Dragon King makes a move. The Dragon King's strength is definitely not weaker than peak godly state experts. Some people thought to themselves as they looked at the towering Dragon King who had 2 horns on his head while sitting on the dragon throne. At this moment, they felt a strong sense of reverence in their hearts. Roared, "Take this." The berserk Ao Chitian held the sea-pacifying divine needle in his hand and smashed it at everyone in the Eternal Legion. The blood-red energy pillar covered an area of more than 100 kilometers and fell from the sky. Boom, boom, boom. A few peak godly state berserk dragon species also raised their cudgels and smashed them. Following closely behind were streaks of blood-red lightning and thorns that filled the sky. Dodge, dodge. The 2 thunder gods saw these attacks and shouted with terrified faces. Dodge, dodge, dodge. The faces of the Eternal Army's disciples also changed drastically as they hurriedly dodged to the side. Boom, boom, boom. However, it was not so easy to completely dodge the attacks of peak god level experts. In an instant, 5,000 to 6,000 Eternal Army disciples were hit by one attack after another. This was because the Eternal Army was the most powerful army in the entire Eternal Thunderclap. Even so, 5,000 disciples was a direct loss of 1/10 of the Eternal Army's strength. Damn it. When the 2 thunder gods saw this scene, their expressions changed drastically. If this continued, they would be able to kill all of the 7 peak godly state experts in 5 minutes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, the 2 thunder gods saw 4 peak godly state members of the Dragon Palace attacking them. Their pupils constricted slightly, and their faces were unsightly. Even Eternal Thunderclap wants to fight against our Dragon Palace. The other disciples of the Dragon Palace rushed over with cold and disdainful expressions. At its peak, Eternal Shocking Thunder had more than 20 peak Divine Realm experts, but now, only 2 of them were left. This power was far weaker than the Dragon Palace's. In other words, the current Eternal Shocking Thunder relied on the Thunder God Lord alone. Damn it, our Thunder God Lord has fallen too many times. We are not a match for the Dragon Palace at all. The Eternal Army disciples roared in low voices with ugly expressions. Lord God Lord, save us. A deity-level powerhouse could not help but ask the Thunder God Lord for help in the sky. If they did not ask for help, they would all be killed soon. Cough, cough, Dragon Palace, you deserve to die. The Thunder God Lord looked down and saw the huge gap between his subordinates and the Dragon Palace. He was so angry that thunder exploded all over his body. With such a huge gap, their Eternal Thunder disciples would soon be killed. Heavenly Thunder. With a gloomy face, he raised the thunder hammer in his right hand and smashed it down heavily. Boom, boom, boom. Bolts of lightning struck toward Ao Chitian and the others. Jing, you don't think much of me and lie. With a cold growl, the dark, fierce demonic dragon swung his huge tail and swept toward Jinglei in the sky region. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying collision sounded, which made the face of the Thunder God Lord change slightly. His body moved, and he directly swooped down towards the members of the Dragon Palace below. He wanted to kill the experts of the Dragon Palace first. However, at this time, the dark blazing demonic dragon's enormous body directly appeared behind him, and its dragon claws directly clawed towards him. Get lost! The Thunder God Lord roared furiously, and the thunder hammer and thunder spear in his hand crossed together. 3 forks of lightning struck towards the dark blazing demonic dragon. Jinglei, if you attack the disciples of the Dragon Palace, I will attack the disciples of your Eternal Thunder. Seeing the Thunder God Lord wanting to kill the other members of the Dragon Palace with a murderous look on his face, Enlai moved his body and released a terrifying power toward the Eternal Thunder. Huff, huff, huff. Seeing Enlai's attack, the Thunder God Lord's breathing quickened. 1. He moved and instantly blocked the Eternal Legion's front, blocking all of Enlai's attacks. The Thunder God Lord's gaze was fixed on Enlai, his eyes filled with violent killing intent. He also knew that if he wanted to kill the demon dragon whose strength had increased once again, he would have to pay a heavy price. Moreover, this would still require a few hours. However, all the members of the Eternal Army would be killed during this period. Even the planets behind Eternal Thunderclap would be ravaged by evil spirits. Enlai stared coldly at the Lord of Thunderclap and did not continue to attack. The members of the Dragon Palace also stopped and stared coldly at Eternal Thunderclap and the rest. Hehe, Lord of Thunderclap, our Dragon Palace wants half of the northern region. I wonder if Eternal Thunderclap has any objections. Wang Xian smiled when he saw this situation. The 9 divine wind dragons pulled the dragon throne and floated in front of Lord of Thunderclap. Wang Xian looked at him and asked calmly. It was impossible to destroy Eternal Thunderclap now. However, his Dragon Palace wanted half of the northern region. This represented the rise of the Dragon Palace. Chapter 2160. 2162,160 Dynasties fame spread far and wide. My Dragon Palace wants half of the northern region. When these words rang out, the eyes of everyone on the free trade planet below sparkled. Their gazes were fixed on the Dragon King and the Thunder God Lord. No matter what, the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace stood proudly in front of the Thunder God Lord and said these words. There weren't many people in the entire boundless galaxy who could do it. At this moment, it was definitely a scene that could be recorded in history for the northern region. The eternal thunderbolt which had dominated the entire northern region for hundreds of thousands of years was facing a challenge from a force for the first time. Palipala. The Thunder God Lord stared at Wang Xian. His eyes were filled with fury and killing intent. Roar. The dark blazing demonic dragon let out a low roar and circled around Wang Xian to prevent the Thunder God Lord from launching a sudden attack. Huff, puff. The Thunder God Lord scanned the entire Dragon Palace and took a deep breath. Dragon King, right? Very good. You are the first person I will remember. Just you wait. He spoke slowly with a gloomy face. This might be my honor. In this case, half of the northern region belongs to our Dragon Palace. Wang Xian smiled faintly and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Let's go. The Lord of Thunder suppressed the anger and thunder in his heart and shouted at the Eternal Thunder disciples behind him. It's the Lord of Thunder. The Eternal Army disciples and the 2 Thunder Gods also heaved a sigh of relief. If they were to really fight, all of them would definitely be destroyed by the Dragon Palace. As for whether the Lord of Thunder could destroy the Dragon Palace, that would be a matter after their deaths. They did not want to die, even after seeing the current ending. Rumble. The 2 Thunderhorn divine beasts at the peak of the godly state let out a low roar. The Thunder God Lord came to the throne with a gloomy expression. He stared deeply at Wang Xian. Rumble. The 2 Thunderhorn divine beasts pulled the Thunder Battle Valley. The disciples of the Eternal Army did not say a word. They flew to the Thunder Battle Valley in silence. Today was undoubtedly a great humiliation to the entire Eternal Thunderclap. Rumble. Everyone flew to Thunder Battle Valley. The 2 Thunderhorn divine beasts roared again and flew towards the direction of Thunder Planet. Thunder God Lord sat on his throne coldly and slowly closed his eyes. If he wasn't afraid that Eternal Thunderclap's strongest legion and Thunder God would be killed, if he wasn't worried that Yaoxie was invading Eternal Thunderclap, he, Thunder God Lord, would kill the Devil Dragon and destroy the Dragon Palace at all costs. Today he, the Thunder God Lord, would be humiliated. Head to the Steel Planet. He ordered in a low voice. The Thunder Horn divine beast roared and flew directly towards the Steel Planet. That place was suffering from Yaoxie's attack, and it was possible that the entire Steel Planet had been destroyed. At the thought of this, the Thunder God Lord clenched his fists tightly, his heart filled with killing intent. He wouldn't be satisfied if he didn't kill the Dragon King. Hiss. At the same time, on the free trade planet in the northern expedition, everyone's faces were filled with shock when they saw this scene. The Thunder God Lord and the others have left. This means that the Dragon Palace of the northern region will occupy half of the planet in the future. For hundreds of thousands of years, the Dragon Palace is the only force that can compete with the eternal thunder in the northern region. Does this mean that the Dragon Palace will be promoted to the sixth largest force in the boundless galaxy? Can they compete with other god-level forces? The current strength of the Dragon Palace might not be comparable to other god-level forces, but they are definitely not afraid of other god-level forces. This is because there is someone among them who can compete with the god-level forces. Shocked voices rang out continuously on the planet. Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne in the void with a faint smile on his face. Let's go. Next, let's clean up the planets of the Northern Territory Alliance. Wang Xian smiled as he watched the Thunder God Lord and the rest disappear from his sights. The 9 wind god dragons let out a roar of victory. Their roars reverberated throughout the entire planet. They pulled the dragon throne and slowly flew towards the direction of the Dragon Palace. Greetings, Dragon King. When the wind god dragon and the others flew over the cities, everyone on the planet quickly knelt down and bowed loudly. Today, they witnessed the rise of the Dragon Palace and witnessed the rise of a force that could fight against eternal lightning. In the future, the Dragon Palace of the northern region would occupy half of the city. It was no exaggeration to say that the Dragon Palace would be their king in the future. Whoever the Dragon Palace wanted to kill would have to die. The Dragon Palace would also possess the majesty that the eternal thunderclap had in the past. Wang Xian's gaze swept down as the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Today, the Dragon Palace would be famous throughout the entire northern region and even the entire boundless galaxy. Next, I will build the underwater Dragon Palace on the planets one by one. I will control all the oceans and gather the resources to raise the strength of the Dragon Palace once again. Wang Xian mumbled as his eyes shone brightly. Who would have thought that a Dragon Palace would rise up so suddenly? That dark demon dragon seems to be the mastermind behind the demon lair in the northern region. I wonder how the Dragon King will subdue him. In the future, the Dragon Palace will be our king. The position of the Dragon King will be comparable to that of the Thunder God Lord in the northern region. Everyone on the planet watched Wang Xian and the rest enter the Ocean Dragon Palace and spoke with reverence. Today, they were witnesses. They could imagine that the news of the Thunder God Lord being forced to retreat by the Dragon Palace would spread to the other planets at a crazy speed. It wouldn't be long before the entire boundless galaxy would know about this. After all, after this battle, the Dragon Palace would be the 6th largest force in the boundless star area. Roar, Dragon King Dragon Palace, Dark Demon Dragon, Thunderclap, will definitely kill you. Just as everyone on the Northern Expedition Free Trade Planet was shocked by the power of the Dragon Palace, on the Steel Planet. Thunderclap Godlord's eyes were bloodshot as he looked at the barren planet in front of him. Bolts of lightning covered the sky, covering an area of over 10,000 kilometers. Behind him, the 2 thunder gods and all the Eternal Army disciples lowered their heads in fear. It had been a long time since they had seen Thunder God Lord so angry. But it made sense when they thought about it. Eternal Thunder had suffered heavy losses recently, and there were only 2 thunder gods out of more than 20. Due to fear in the battle just now, the northern region would no longer be Thunderclap's king. In front of them, as one of the most important planets of Eternal Thunderclap, the Steel Planet had also been ravaged by demonic forces. If it were anyone else, they would be burning with rage. A force without a Godlord level actually dares to be so arrogant towards me. Dragon King, it will soon be your end. Thunderclap Godlord growled with a low hand, and around him, thin bolts of lightning were constantly flickering and jumping. My majesty is not something that anyone can provoke. To cause my eternal thunder to lose so much, there must be a price to pay. He slightly lowered his head and looked at the lightning in his hand with a cold gaze. thoroughly angering a god lord was extremely terrifying. Chapter 2161. 2161 was famous. The Thunder God Lord went to the Dragon Palace in person, but he was defeated. The Dragon Palace occupied half of the northern region and fought with Eternal Shocking Thunder. Eternal Shocking Thunder has suffered heavy losses recently. The Dragon Palace has experts who can fight against the Thunder God Lord. The Dragon Palace is rising. Shocking. A force in the northern region, the Dragon Palace, has the power to fight against Eternal Shocking Thunder. Its name is the Dragon Palace, and the leader of the Dragon Palace is the Dragon King. Is this for real? If it can fight against Eternal Shocking Thunder, doesn't that mean it's the sixth largest force in the boundless galaxy? The news of the northern expedition to the free trade planet spread to the surrounding planets at a terrifying speed. Soon, everyone in the northern region knew about it. In less than 5 days, the news spread to other regions. Storyteller, what did you say? The Dragon Palace of the northern region rose up? The leader is the Dragon King? In the eastern region, Eternal Divine Leaf was next to Eternal Shocking Thunder. The news spread to all the planets in the eastern region at once. In a top restaurant on a planet, a storyteller was speaking in a bold and decisive manner. Yes, ladies, my news is 100% correct. Hehe, Eternal Shocking Thunder has been unlucky recently. It is said that only 2 eternal thunderclap gods died, and then the Dragon Palace suddenly rose up. Although Eternal Thunderclap suffered heavy losses because of the Devil Den, the Thunder God Lord is a God Lord after all. Even after personally going on an expedition, he still suffered heavy losses. It can be imagined that the Dragon Palace is very powerful. To be able to contend against a God Lord, the Dragon Palace's strength can be seen to be average. It can be said that once its fame spread throughout the boundless region, the Dragon Palace also has the qualifications. The storyteller spoke with assurance, his face full of smiles. When Eternal Thunderclap encountered a disaster, Eternal Divine Leaf was the happiest. After all, they belonged to an enemy force. This news was good news for Eternal Divine Leaf. Oh, Old Wang is actually so powerful? The 2 girls' faces were filled with shock, and they looked at each other. Come, let's go ask Father to see if it's true. As the 2 girls spoke, they immediately flew out. In the restaurant, the 2 old men's eyes were filled with astonishment as they followed closely behind the 2 girls, secretly protecting their safety. Father, Father. Half an hour later, in the Eternal Divine Leaf Divine Kingdom, Huara and Kair shouted as they walked into the hall of the Divine Tree ahead. Hee girls, aren't you traveling? Why are you here all of a sudden? At that moment, Divine Leaf Divine Master heard the voice outside, and his face was full of smiles. He immediately stood up. Aunt. Little princess. In the great hall, everyone hurriedly bowed to Huara Kair. Father, we heard something and came to confirm it. Huara held God Lord Shinya's arm and said with a smile. Oh, the Dragon Palace in the north? God Lord Shinai stroked their heads with a solemn expression. He had just received this news not long ago. When he heard the news, his face was full of surprise. He couldn't believe that the godfather of his 2 daughters, a small force, was so terrifying. Is it true? The 2 girls asked with concern and joy. It's true. God Lord Shinai nodded heavily. It's amazing. I knew that the Dragon Palace would rise up quickly, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. Moreover, its reputation has spread all over the boundless star area. The 2 girls' faces were full of pride, and their eyes were shining. Seeing the proud and respectful looks of his 2 daughters, God Master Shinai shook his head in jealousy. However, he was shocked that a force that had only been in the boundless star field for 2 years now had the power to contend against God Masters. It's quite powerful, but it's still far from our Eternal Divine Leaf. However, he forced himself to speak calmly. Humph, with Old Wang and the other's speed of improvement, the Dragon Palace will be stronger than Eternal Divine Leaf in 2 years at most. No, even 1 year. The two girls shook their heads and said with certainty with their heads slightly raised. Why are you two girls helping others? God Lord Divine Leaf said with a dark face. Hee. The two girls smiled, their faces full of happiness. Li Muliang and Li Muyuan smiled bitterly. They were gathered here to talk about the new power, the Dragon Palace. They were not shocked at all. The Dragon King that they had met back then had reached a level that even the God Lord was shocked by. They were not the only ones who were shocked. The God Lord level forces in the southern region, western region, and central region were all talking about the Dragon Palace. They had really become famous in a single battle. They were even more shocked as they had a deeper understanding of the Dragon Palace. The speed of the Dragon King's growth was too fast. Little Xian, our Dragon Palace is developing at such a fast speed. It actually occupies 42 vital planets. If that's the case, our Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty can also develop at a fast speed. In the Dragon Palace on Earth, Wang Xian and a group of girls were having dinner in the Dragon King's bedroom. They were all delighted as they spoke. It's a little fast this time. Let's settle down properly in the next period of time. Wang Xian nodded his head. He was in a great mood. The Dragon Palace controlled the ocean of 42 planets and the resources of 42 planets. By gathering the resources of 42 planets, even if the Dragon Palace did not go through war, the speed of improvement was not slow. In 7 or 8 days, the gathered resources would be enough to ignite the divine fire of a member of the Dragon Palace. You can relax now. We have to work hard for the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty. Ever since the girls decided to develop the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty, they had been full of fighting spirit and were busy with work every day. Now, the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty and the Dragon Gate Academy were developing together, and they were getting stronger and stronger. The Divine Realm experts of the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty had already reached about 10, not counting the girls. It was quite a big force in the northern region in the past. Of course, the Dragon Palace was a big reason for this. After all, the Dragon Palace only controlled the ocean and only recruited aquatic creatures. If the others wanted to join the force, they could only join the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty and the Dragon Gate Academy. This allowed them to develop at a very fast speed. Don't be busy for the next period of time. Let's have a good rest. Wang Xian glanced at the group of girls with shifty eyes and said with a smile on his face, "Umph." The group of girls rolled their eyes at him, but no one said anything. This also meant that they had tacitly agreed. Wang Xian hummed a tune and was in a very good mood. Chapter 2162 2162 2162 Thunderclap Kill. Time slowly passed. Ever since the Dragon Palace rose to power and the Dragon Palace occupied half of the northern region, the entire northern region had fallen into a state of peace. Eternal Thunderclap, whose vitality had been greatly damaged, was recovering its strength. At this time, they did not have the energy to find trouble with the Dragon Palace. Furthermore, Eternal Thunderclap was no match for the Dragon Palace if the Thunderclap God Lord did not make a move. 2 years passed very quickly. For a god with a lifespan of 100,000 years, 2 years might not even be enough time for him to enter seclusion. However, during these 2 years, the Dragon Palace had completely stabilized the situation. The underwater Dragon Palace was spread across 42 planets. With the Dragon Palace's great development, the number of Dragon Palace members had increased from more than 30,000 to 50,000. With more than 10,000 members, the strength of the Dragon Palace had increased significantly. All the disciples of the Dragon Palace were at least at demigod level rank 9. In the past 2 years, the number of members who had lit the godly fire had reached 150. This was secondary. The number of disciples who had not lit the godly fire but were able to fight against a wisp of the godly fire had reached about 200. This was a huge improvement. In other words, the number of divine level members of the Dragon Palace had reached more than 300. Compared to the number of god level forces, there were still a few of them. However, Wang Xian was not in a hurry. It had only been 4 years since the Dragon Palace had stepped into the boundless galaxy. These 4 years were comparable to the accumulation of hundreds of thousands of years by many forces. However, the fact that Wang Xian had been staying in the Dragon Palace made one of them roar more and more furiously. It has been 2 years. The Dragon King rarely stepped out of the Dragon Palace. He only left the Dragon Palace a few times with the demonic dragon following him. In the eternal divine kingdom of the Lord of Thunder, lightning covered the entire divine kingdom. Compared to the past, the entire divine kingdom looked extremely violent. A thunder god knelt in front of the thunder god lord and reported respectfully. Continue to monitor. I don't believe that the Dragon King will always stay in the Dragon Palace, and will always be under the protection of the Devil Dragon. The thunder god lord roared in a low voice. It's Lord God Lord. Once the Dragon King leaves the Dragon Palace alone, your subordinate will report immediately. The thunder god nodded respectfully and bowed as he retreated. As he retreated out of the divine kingdom, he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. For the past 2 years, every time he entered the eternal divine kingdom, he felt terrified. He could clearly sense the Lord God's anger towards the Dragon Palace and the Dragon King. Damn Dragon King, you've completely angered the Lord God. With our Lord God watching you, your death is not far away. He growled in a low voice with a savage expression. There was only one possibility for the Lord God to have them watch the Dragon King at all times. That was for the Lord God to be prepared to take him by surprise and kill him, which was also a sneak attack. If the people from other factions knew that a Lord God was planning to sneak attack a peak deity realm expert, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. At that time, there would be different opinions about the Thunder God Lord. However, it was obvious that the furious Thunder God had already ignored the comments about him from the outside world. Dragon King. A month passed quietly. In the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian was sitting cross-legged on the dragon throne. The 5 elements millstone in front of him was spinning as he was devouring the 5-star godly state materials. Prime Minister Gue came to the Dragon King's palace and shouted softly. What's the matter? Wang Xian raised his head and looked at Prime Minister Gue. Dragon King, I received a message from Ao Jian. Prime Minister Gue took out his communication stone plate and said to Wang Xian. Oh, Ao Jian? What message did he send? Let me see. Wang Xian was astonished. Ever since Ao He, Ao Jian, Ao Yao and the rest had left for the past few years, they had not sent any messages. Wang Xian was also clueless about their situation. Now that he had received Ao Jian's message, he was slightly surprised. There is a great opportunity between the central region and the western region. It is suspected that the eternal tomb has appeared. When Wang Xian saw Ao Jian's message, his face was filled with surprise. Wang Xian naturally had a very good understanding of the eternal tomb. It was definitely an incomparably huge treasure. Back then, Qin Fiang had obtained the inheritance of the divine tomb. If he didn't die later, there was a high chance of him becoming the eternal lord. A divine tomb was definitely a crazy existence. Ao Jian only sent a message. The outside world probably doesn't know about this divine tomb yet. Should I go and take a look? Wang Xian looked hesitant. It wasn't easy to enter the eternal tomb. Back then, the Dragon Palace didn't enter the core of the 2 divine tombs. However, Wang Xian would not be satisfied if he did not investigate the eternal tomb. I have nothing to do now anyway. It's good to go and take a look. Wang Xian mumbled to himself. He had already made up his mind. It had been more than 3 years since he last saw Ao Jian. He wanted to see how much Ao Jian had grown. However, unlike the strange demon, the dragon guards did not gather together. Instead, they were scattered or gathered in groups of 2 or 3. Not all of them were gathered together. Prime Minister Gue, I'm preparing to go out for a while. The time is still to be determined. The dark blazing demonic dragon is in charge of the Dragon Palace. You can handle the rest of the matters. Wang Xian said to Prime Minister Gue. It's the Dragon King. Don't worry, Dragon King. Leave the Dragon Palace to me. Prime Minister Gue nodded and replied. Okay. Wang Xian nodded. Then his body moved and he flew out. Wang Xian wanted to inform the girls about his departure this time. The next morning at the Dragon Palace on Earth, Wang Xian waved goodbye to the girls. Through the teleportation formation of the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian arrived at the free planet of the Dragon Palace. The free planet of the Dragon Palace was previously a free trade planet in the Northern Expedition. Now its name had been changed. There were a large number of teleportation formations on this planet, which could save a lot of distance from the secondary school. Ever since I came to the boundless galaxy, I have never been to the central region. Wang Xian floated in the sky above the ocean with a smile on his face. This time, he could go to the central region of the boundless galaxy to take a look and see the most prosperous place in the entire boundless galaxy. He muttered in his heart and flew directly to the location of the teleportation formation. The Dragon King is out. However, at this moment, what even Wang Xian didn't sense was that when he flew out from the ocean, an old man noticed his actions. The old man's expression changed slightly. He immediately took out his communication stone plate and sent out a message. Greetings, Dragon King. Wang Xian arrived at the location of the teleportation formation. The dragon and phoenix divine dynasty expert who was guarding the teleportation formation hurriedly flew over and reported respectfully. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly and left through the teleportation formation. What he still didn't know was that at the side of the teleportation formation, a soldier who was guarding the formation saw Wang Xian leaving. His eyes were sparkling. He took out a communication stone plate and began to transmit information. Eternal thunderclap had dominated the northern region for hundreds of thousands of years. Their background was beyond everyone's imagination. Chapter 2163. 2163-2163 had used all of his trump cards. Eternal Shocking Thunder, who dominated the entire northern region, had disciples all over the northern region. Even if the Dragon Palace controlled half of the northern region, Eternal Shocking Thunder could easily find out some things. It was also easy to send thousands or even tens of thousands of hidden sentries to monitor the Dragon Palace. After all, the Dragon Palace had only been in the northern region for a short period of time. Unlike the Eternal Thunderclap, which had disciples all over the northern region. Wang Xian did not sense that someone was watching his every move. The other party did not follow him either. It was impossible for Wang Xian to notice him even if he merely stayed here to take a look. Even the Eternal God Lord would find it hard to notice anything under such circumstances. 111. At this moment, a Thunder God in the Thunder God Mansion looked at the messages sent by his subordinates with an excited look on his face. It's been more than 2 years. That Dragon King has finally come out. His time of death has come. A ferocious and fiery look appeared on his face. His body moved and he quickly flew toward the Eternal Divine Kingdom. Boom, boom, boom. 2 minutes later, a bolt of lightning struck in front of the Eternal Kingdom. The purple lightning streaked across the sky and disappeared into the vast void. The God of Thunder looked at the disappearing lightning with respect, and a smile appeared on his face. This time, the Dragon King would definitely die. This was the consequence of angering a god. From the northern region to the central region, only the heavenly sun planet with eternal lightning has a teleportation formation. If I fly there, it will take at least half a month. Wang Xian slowly appeared in front of the teleportation formation on the Sky Sun planet. Currently, Eternal Thunderclap and the Dragon Palace had yet to reach the stage where they could cut off the teleportation of the planet. Therefore, Wang Xian could easily enter Eternal Thunderclap. However, when he arrived here, Wang Xian covered himself completely with a bunch of loose ropes. He wore a hat on his head to prevent himself from being recognized. If the God of Thunder knows that I have stepped into their territory, he might send someone to ambush me. Wang Xian smiled faintly and walked to the side. Not far away from the side, There was a teleportation formation that directly teleported to the planet in the central region. As a planet that teleported across regions, there were many people coming and going around. Many merchant teams were stationed here. This could be considered a prosperous planet. Wang Xian covered his body and walked straight to the planet's teleportation formation in front of him. He took out the spirit stones and placed them in the formation. But the formation shimmered. Just when the formation was about to teleport away from Wang Xian, there was no movement on it. Huh! Wang Xian was slightly stunned. All of a sudden, he felt a huge wave of terror engulfing his heart. Wang Xian's expression changed and he quickly dodged to the side. However, when he dodged to the side, he didn't notice that someone was attacking him. His expression changed slightly and he quickly swept his surroundings. When he saw a middle-aged man covered in lightning in the sky, his expression changed drastically. Oh no, why is he here? Wang Xian was astonished. Without any hesitation, his body shook and he wanted to teleport away. However, at this moment, he could feel that the space around him seemed to be frozen. It was impossible for him to teleport. He is here specifically to wait for me. A thought immediately appeared in Wang Xian's mind and his heart sank. What happened? When some people around saw Wang Xian's panicked look, they were stunned. Dragon King, I really don't know who gave you the courage to step into the eternal Thunderbolt domain alone. A voice filled with contempt came from the middle-aged man in the sky. Wang Xian's body stiffened and his expression was extremely ugly. He took a deep breath and stared at the middle-aged man. The Lord of Thunderbolt is really giving me face, Dragon King. He actually ordered people to monitor me at all times and ambush me here. He said slowly while staring at the Lord of Shocking Thunder with a dark expression. As he said that, he took off his hood and his gaze was cold. What? Lord of Shocking Thunder? That person is the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace? When everyone around heard Wang Xian's words, they were shocked. They looked at the Lord of Shocking Thunder who was floating in the sky with a look of awe. Greetings, Thunder God Lord. Everyone hurriedly knelt on the ground and greeted the Thunder God Lord. At the same time, they looked at the Dragon King in front of them in shock. Is the Thunder God Lord here to kill this Dragon King? The Dragon King of the Dragon Palace is going to be finished. Everyone had already made a decision in their hearts. Haha, ambushing you? You, Dragon King, think too highly of yourself. If I wanted to kill you, it would be as easy as squishing an ant to death. The God of Thunder stared at Wang Xian and laughed out loud in a good mood. Wang Xian stared at him and clenched his fist slightly. His gaze swept across the surroundings. Stop looking. You are just an ant. It is your honor for me to kill you with my own hands. The God of Thunder stared at Wang Xian with a face full of contempt. He extended his index finger from high above and a bolt of lightning appeared on his finger. Crackle! Crackle! With a tap of his index finger, the bolt of lightning headed straight for Wang Xian. Although it was a small action and even carried a hint of disdain in its attack style, the power of the lightning within was extremely terrifying. Boom! The bolt of lightning arrived in an instant. Wang Xian didn't even have the strength to resist and was directly struck by it. His expression changed drastically and his body flew backward. He didn't have the ability to resist at all. Wang Xian sensed the terror of the Lord of Thunder and his expression changed drastically. The sound of cracking could be heard from within his body. The dragon punishing bone shattered. Crash! Wang Xian sensed that his body didn't receive much of an attack. He moved his body and the incipient holy wings appeared behind him. The incipient holy wings flapped violently and he flew toward the void with all his might. He is really a stubborn ant. The God of Thunder raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw that his attack did not kill Wang Xian. He waved his arm and dense thunderbolts struck toward Wang Xian once again. Damn it, the speed of the thunderbolts is too fast. Wang Xian sensed the thunderbolts behind him and his expression changed slightly. A rich seven-colored energy appeared directly on the wings. He gritted his teeth and the wings emitted an intense light. He unleashed all his strength and narrowly avoided the bolts of lightning. HMH Dragon King, do you know why people call me the Thunder God Lord? I'll let you experience it today. The Thunder God Lord snorted coldly when he saw that Wang Xian had dodged his attack again. Crackle! The sound of thunder and lightning came from behind. In the next moment, Wang Xian felt a purple bolt of lightning landing on his body. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of the dragon punishing bone breaking was heard again. After ruling over 42 planets, Wang Xian had obtained another dragon punishing bone. There are quite a lot of life-saving items. If you, an ant, can escape today, where will the face of the Thunder God Lord be? Eternal Thunderclap's face turned cold when he saw his attack was blocked by a ball of energy. Chapter 2164 2164 The Soul in the Uninitiated Holy Wings. A thunderous sound. All living things in the world were terrified. This was the evaluation of the Thunder God Lord from the boundless galaxy. When the thunderous sound rang out, the terrifying attack had already landed on his body. Crackle, crackle. The Thunder God Lord stood in the void and looked at Wang Xian, who was running for his life. He waved his arm playfully. Two thunderbolts instantly landed on the wings on Wang Xian's back. Wang Xian, who was running for his life, turned pale. When the bolts of lightning landed on his body, two miserable shrieks were heard. The miserable shrieks did not originate from him but from the two dragon souls on his wings. Under the power of the lightning, the two dragon souls dissipated and completely sank into the uninitiated holy wings. When he heard the miserable shrieks of the dragon souls on the uninitiated holy wings, his heart sank and a hint of despair appeared on his face. Faced with such a terrifying Thunder God Lord, Wang Xian didn't have the ability to resist at all. He die. Palipala. At this moment, a contemptuous voice came from behind. When the lightning struck, his face sank. There was no time for him to escape. An incomparably huge lightning bolt landed directly on Wang Xian's body. Ah! A feeling of excruciating pain spread from his back. Wang Xian felt that a large part of his back was split open. He could feel his blood dripping down crazily. He could feel the life force in his body disappearing rapidly. I'm done for. His heart sank and a bitter expression appeared on his face. He would never have thought that the Thunder God was waiting for him here to ambush him. He's not dead yet? Ants really have a tough life. Let him perish. At this moment, violent purple thunderbolts struck toward Wang Xian. Hiss! The Dragon King is going to die. The Dragon King of the Dragon Palace is going to die. Ha! This is the outcome of offending our eternal thunderbolts. Below them, everyone from Eternal Thunderbolts looked excited when they saw this scene. There were also some merchants from the central region who felt a chill in their hearts when they saw this scene. They didn't expect to see this scene here. They saw the fall of the leader of the Dragon Palace who had risen to power 2 years ago. Ah! Painful sounds filled his entire body. Wang Xian could feel that his body had been completely dismembered by the lightning. Even every single cell in his body seemed to have been obliterated. He couldn't help but let out a miserable scream. He would definitely die from this attack. Wang Xian could feel his consciousness dissipating. He could feel that he was about to die. Ah, I'm finally awake. This body is not bad. It's a pity that my life force has almost completely dissipated. This won't do. I have to get rid of the Genesis wings now. I'm not completely dead yet. It's barely enough. Just as Wang Xian was in a daze and felt that he was about to disappear, a voice suddenly rang in his ears. Following that, he felt the Genesis wings on his back unfurling. His body, which was almost destroyed, had recovered a little. You're not dead yet? At this moment, the astonished voice of the Thunder God Lord rang out. Crack, crack, crack. Following that, Wang Xian heard the crackling of thunder and lightning. Damn it, how dare these puny godlords attack me and aunt? The furious voice of the old man continued to ring in Wang Xian's ears. Soon after, he felt the uninitiated holy wings wrapping around his entire body. In front of him, he vaguely sensed a black hole appearing in front of him. He went straight into the black hole. How is this possible? Die for this god. The Thunder God Lord's furious voice continued to sound out, and bolts of lightning filled the void. But the black hole slowly disappeared. Crackle, crackle. In the sky above the heavenly sun planet, dense and endless lightning covered the sky, and the terrifying lightning caused the sky and earth to change color. Below, everyone stared at this scene in horror. Ka ka ka. The Thunder God Lord, who was located in the center of the lightning, was extremely furious. He stared at the black hole that had completely disappeared with a ferocious expression. He had actually failed. He had actually allowed the Dragon King to escape in his hands. How could he be willing to let the Dragon King, who was about to be killed by him, escape by force? Where was his face? He looked over with a gloomy face and his breathing was a little hurried. Palipala. In the end, he left with a gloomy face. If he failed this time, the Dragon King would never be alone again. It would be even harder for him to kill him. Hoo, how terrifying. That Dragon King actually ran away. It's unbelievable. He escaped from the hands of the Thunder God Lord. That Dragon King is so powerful. Exclamations came from below. Everyone slowly stood up and sighed. Soon, the news spread to the surroundings at a terrifying speed. When the news of the Dragon King being ambushed and killed by the Lord of Thunder reached the Dragon Palace, all the members of the Dragon Palace were furious. Although the Dragon King didn't die, it was still a blatant provocation to their Dragon Palace. Prime Minister Gui immediately announced that all teleportation to Eternal Shocking Thunder would be closed. Then, the Dark Thunder Devil Dragon led a group of experts from the Dragon Palace to attack Eternal Shocking Thunder Planet. At the same time, the hidden demons were ready to move, attacking Eternal Shocking Thunder one after the other. In one day, they directly broke through the 4 planets of Eternal Shocking Thunder. After taking over the 4 planets, the Dragon Palace finally gave up. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment, in the Dragon Palace on Earth, the ancestral tree in the Dragon King Palace suddenly trembled slightly. The soul-returning tree was emitting a mysterious luster. The ancestral tree only moved for 2 seconds before it stopped. What's going on? I can't possess the body of a little god. Crack, crack, crack. I'm so angry. What the hell is this place? The primal purple chi is so thin. It's over, it's over. If we don't have a chance this time, our chances in the future will be even slimmer. In the sky above the western region, a voice suddenly came from a body that was falling from the sky. The pale voice was filled with exasperation. Crash. The body had a pair of white bone wings. The bone wings trembled twice before it slowly entered the back and completely disappeared. The body landed in the forest with a loud sound. The one who fell from the sky was naturally Wang Xian, who had escaped by accident. The heavy injuries on his body caused him to lose consciousness immediately. Brother, there's someone here. No, he has 2 horns. He might be a descendant of a divine beast too. After an unknown period of time, a sweet-sounding voice suddenly sounded. A beautiful young lady was sizing up Wang Xian under the tree. The young lady had a pair of pointy ears and a long tail. She had a charming expression on her face. This is Lin Tianxin from the fox-pattern celestial race. How can there be a human here? A young man's voice was heard. He fainted here and is still breathing. Brother, come and take a look. Chapter 2165. 2165 2165 Void God Emperor. Has he woken up yet? Miss, not yet. It has been a month and he still hasn't woken up yet. He seems to be seriously injured. I've checked some information on the divine beast descendant with 2 horns on his head, but I still can't find anything. In the room that had an ancient fragrance that made it seem like there were some unusual species, the sounds of conversation entered Wang Xian's ears. He opened his eyes slightly and moved his body. Instantly, waves of intense pain came over. Wang Xian frowned and tried to sense his body. It was too horrible to look at. What happened? Based on my current situation, I should be dead for sure? That's not right. At that time, there seemed to be a voice ringing in my ears. Wang Xian's face revealed a contemplative look as his eyes sparkled. He clearly remembered that just as he was about to be killed, a voice suddenly rang out. And the source of the voice was... Wang Xian endured the pain in his body and sat up. Then he touched his back. Sensing that the voice outside had disappeared, he pondered for a moment. Come out. Wang Xian growled in a low voice. His voice was transmitted to the uninitiated holy wings behind him. Brat, hurry up and pay your respects to me. All of a sudden, the entire wooden room underwent a change. The surroundings turned into a vast white space. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and sized up his surroundings. His gaze landed on the old man in front of him. The old man looked like a celestial being. He had a long white beard and held a scepter in his hand. He seemed to be filled with an otherworldly aura. However, his body was not real. Kid, I saved you from that little god. Why aren't you thanking me? When the old man saw that Wang Xian had no reaction, he snorted and raised his head slightly. He looked unhappy. Are you the soul of the incorporeal holy wings? You don't deserve the soul of a divine weapon, yet you still want to possess it? Wang Xian stared at the old man coldly and said, Who is the soul of a divine weapon? I am the Celestial Emperor. Do you know that I am the Celestial Emperor? The Celestial Emperor who has swept across all corners of the world. You better watch what you say. When the old man heard Wang Xian's words, he roared furiously. Celestial Emperor? Wang Xian was slightly moved, but his face was still filled with coldness. So, you admit that you have possessed the soul? An old man who only has his soul left wants to possess the soul? I think you want your soul to be destroyed. Wang Xian stared at him coldly and growled in a low voice. How dare you? I am the god of heaven's formation, you little god. Let's see what's going on with you first. The old man blew his beard and glared at him while Wang Xian said indifferently. You. When the old man heard his words, he instantly wilted. If he had a physical body, his face would definitely be flushed red. Soul catcher. Wang Xian didn't want to continue talking to him. This old man was hiding in the inceptive sage wings. He didn't wake up at the beginning, but there were 2 dragon souls suppressing him. After the dragon souls were destroyed, he came out to possess him. His intentions were definitely not good. Wang Xian naturally couldn't let him stay. Damn it, stop. The old man sensed a special energy attacking his soul. His expression changed as he moved and disappeared. Huh. Wang Xian saw that the soul-capturing effect had failed and the white mirror image around him had disappeared. He could sense the uninitiated holy wings behind him. Old man, aren't you the Celestial Emperor? Why aren't you being arrogant anymore? He said faintly. Little brother, you are ruthless. The old man's voice came from the uninitiated holy wings. Wang Xian smiled coldly and ignored him. The old man was defeated and didn't speak to Wang Xian anymore. Phew! He temporarily put aside the old man's matter behind him. He sensed the strength of his body and his face was filled with bitterness. With his current strength, a powerhouse at the half-body level could kill him. He moved his palm and took out some divine herbs and pills from the mother nest and consumed them directly. Young man, you're awake. At this moment, a middle-aged woman walked in. When the woman saw Wang Xian sitting up, she immediately walked over. Thank you for saving my life. Wang Xian looked at the woman and thanked her. You don't have to thank me, It was our young mistress who brought you here. If you want to thank me, thank our young mistress. I haven't eaten much in a month. Young man, I'll bring you some soup. The woman spoke enthusiastically and turned around to walk out. I'm clearly the one who saved your life. You're a kid who repaid kindness with enmity. You must die, you must die. At this moment, a voice suddenly entered his mind. Wang Xian was slightly stunned. Old man, you're already dead, he said directly with a dark face. As soon as he finished his sentence, the old man's voice immediately disappeared. Wang Xian sat cross-legged on the bed and digested the medicinal pills he had just consumed. At the very least, he wanted to recover some of his injuries first. As for the old man, he had doubts about him being an immortal emperor in the past. Above the eternal God Lord was the immortal God King, and above the immortal God King was the void God Emperor. The void God Emperor represented eternal life. Only when he had the 7 transformations of the divine dragon transformation would he be able to reach the void God Emperor level. He did not believe the words of the old fellow inside the incipient sacred wings. God Emperor? Bullshit. Wang Xian muttered softly as he felt the digestion of the divine pill divine grass. However, his injuries had not even recovered by 1/10. At the moment, he only had the strength of a peak-stage demigod. Bastard! Bastard! If I didn't die and my soul didn't enter the damn bone wings, I would have crushed you to death with one hand. I will place you in the purgatory formation so that you can enjoy death and fear. In the divine wings, the old man roared furiously when he heard Wang Xian's words. However, Wang Xian did not hear his angry roar. Young man, the soup is here. Drink some soup to nourish your body. At this moment, the woman who had just left walked in with a bowl of soup. Auntie, may I know where is this place? Wang Xian looked at the woman and asked with a smile on his face. Where is this place? This is Huxiang Mountain of the Huan celestial race. The woman said with a smile. Huan celestial race? Huxiang Mountain? May I know what planet and which region is this? Wang Xian was puzzled as he continued to ask. Young man, are you out of your mind? This is the hidden tiger planet in the territory of the godly tiger dynasty in the western region. Do you still remember your name? Do you still remember where your home is? Do you want us to send you home so that your family won't be worried? The woman asked Wang Xian consecutively. Wang Xian took the soup bowl and opened his mouth slightly. He didn't know how to respond and could only shake his head. Is there really something wrong with your head? The woman was slightly stunned and looked at him sympathetically. When Wang Xian saw the woman's expression, the corner of his mouth twitched. He couldn't possibly say that he was from the northern region. The woman wouldn't believe it even if he told her. The western region. Ao Jian should be in the western region or the central region. It shouldn't be too far from the divine tomb. Hee, this old man doesn't have any good intentions. Get lost immediately. Don't disturb me from restoring my strength. Otherwise. Wang Xian threatened him faintly. Huff, huff. The old man's breathing was a little hurried. He knew that Wang Xian was not joking. With a move, he disappeared immediately. I will look for an opportunity to subdue him or absorb his memories. Wang Xian thought to himself as he looked at the old man who had disappeared. The surrounding scenery had recovered. He slowly closed his eyes and continued to recover. Damn it, damn it. That kid is very wary of me. It seems that he has a lot of opinions about me after the previous possession. The old man returned to the space of the uninitiated holy wings and said with a black face. 7 attributes. There doesn't seem to be such a heaven-defying existence in history. No wonder I didn't succeed in possessing him. However, if I can take him in as my disciple, I might be able to take revenge in the future. I might even have a chance to reconstruct my golden body. No, this kid has a lot of opinions about me. An anxious look appeared on the old man's face. After a few minutes, he raised his head slightly. Looks like I have to refresh my good impression of him bit by bit. With a bitter expression, he nodded towards the void. But the next moment, a faint purple glow appeared around Wang Xian. The purple glow flashed past. Ha! Suddenly, Wang Xian sensed that the spiritual energy around him had increased by about 20 times. I am the god of heaven's formation. No one can compare to the heaven and earth great formation. This is a small formation that can increase the surrounding spiritual energy by 20 times. If I were at my peak, I could wave my arm and form the heaven and earth great formation to gather spiritual energy within a radius of tens of millions of kilometers. If you become my disciple, I will teach you how to set up the heaven and earth formation and control the power of laws. The old man's voice entered Wang Xian's mind. He raised his eyebrows slightly and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. He didn't reply and just sat there quietly with his legs crossed. HMH, a kid who holds grudges. The old man spoke angrily from within the inceptive sage wings. Master, that young man has already woken up. It seems like there's something wrong with his brain. He doesn't even know about our planet. After an unknown period of time, Wang Xian suddenly heard a voice coming from outside the door. Something wrong with his brain? Does that mean he doesn't know where he came from? If he doesn't know, he will be thrown into the hall of servants. A middle-aged man's voice rang out. Father, no matter what, I was the one who saved him outside. How can he be sent to the hall of servants? A disgruntled voice rang out. It was pleasant to the ear. We Celestials don't keep idle people. The middle-aged man's dignified voice rang out. That won't do. Then let him make his own choice. The female voice said in dissatisfaction. Wang Xian listened to the conversation outside and slowly opened his eyes. Voila! The door to the courtyard opened. The middle-aged man, the woman, and a young girl walked in. The middle-aged man was slightly skinny. He had a tail behind him and looked like a scholar. He looked at Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged and cultivating. He sized up Wang Xian from head to toe and his eyes were filled with astonishment. The strength of a demigod. He was secretly shocked and opened his mouth to speak. I am Wang Xian. Thank you for saving my life, miss. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the middle-aged man and landed on the delicate-looking young lady with 3 pink marks on her face. She had fox ears and a fox tail. A hint of astonishment flashed across his eyes as he cupped his hands. You still remember the name? The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows. Chapter 2167. 2167. Under Huyan Air. It seems like you have recovered completely. The young lady with a foxtail and ears sized up Wang Xian and said with a smile. Yes, I have recovered a little. Wang Xian nodded his head lightly at the young lady. Judging from your aura, you shouldn't be from an ordinary family. Were you being chased by your enemies when you were seriously injured? The skinny middle-aged man stared at Wang Xian and asked faintly. It was an ambush by my enemies. Wang Xian nodded at the middle-aged man. You don't look like you have lost your memory at all. The skinny middle-aged man revealed a cold look in his eyes. He stared at Wang Xian's pupils and wagged his tail gently. Buzz! A cluster of red mist suddenly enveloped Wang Xian. Tell me, where are you from? Being suddenly covered by the red mist, Wang Xian was slightly stunned. Soon after, he felt that his consciousness was a little blurry. His mind jolted and he frowned slightly as he looked at the surrounding mist. I don't know. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before answering. He couldn't possibly tell them that he was from the northern region and that he was being chased by a god, right? It would be fine if they didn't believe him if he told them that. However, if they did, they would definitely be dumbfounded and their faces would be filled with astonishment. Then, how do you know your own name? The skinny middle-aged man's voice continued to ring out. I don't know. Wang Xian replied indifferently. Father. Outside the red mist, the young girl's expression changed slightly when she saw her father displaying the innate ability of the fox-patterned celestial race. She hurriedly pulled her father's arm. This kid has the strength of a demigod. In order to prevent any accidents and prevent the other party from intentionally getting close to us, We must investigate clearly. But now, it seems like he has really lost his memory. The thin and weak middle-aged man said to the young girl. He had already ignited the divine fire and performed the innate divine ability of the fox pattern celestial race to charm a demigod. He was still very confident. He didn't ask any more questions. With a wave of his arm, the red mist dissipated. Miss, you saved me. I, Wang Xian, will definitely repay you in the future. Wang Xian frowned slightly and said to the young lady. No need, no need. Even if I didn't save you, you might still be fine. The young lady waved her hand. Her face was full of smiles. Oh right, you have 2 horns on your head. Are you also a descendant of a divine beast? She looked at Wang Xian's horns curiously and asked. Wang Xian shook his head lightly and didn't say anything else. It seems like you have really lost your memory. However, you have already reached the demigod level at such a young age. You are quite impressive. The young lady looked at him with slight admiration. Your talent is quite strong. Reaching the demigod level in your 30s is not bad. The thin middle-aged man nodded his head faintly. Wang Xian's age had already been found out when the doctor was treating him. They already knew about it. He smiled faintly when he heard that. If they were to know that he was the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace and had the strength at the peak of the godly state in the past, he wondered how they would react. Master, this is bad. The young sect master of the ancient Orchid Divine sect and the princess of the Divine Tiger dynasty have come to our fox-patterned divine clan. They are all in the main hall now. The clan has asked me to call you and Miss over. At this moment, an anxious voice came from outside. What? The ancient Orchid Divine sect has really come. The thin middle-aged man was slightly stunned as anger appeared on his face. Let's go, let's go. He looked at the young lady at the side. His gaze focused and landed on Wang Xian. Little brother, follow me too. Wang Xian was slightly stunned and nodded in astonishment. You're here? When the young girl heard the report from the servant, she revealed an excited expression on her face. Wang Xian looked at the anger of the skinny middle-aged man and the excitement in the young girl's eyes. He was extremely astonished. Young lady, what happened? Following behind the skinny middle-aged man, Wang Xian asked the young girl beside him in puzzlement. He couldn't help but look at the tail behind her. I'm here to break off the engagement. When I was just born, my father made an engagement for me when I was young. The other party seems to have a princess on the list and is here to break off the engagement with me. The young lady turned around and said with a smile. Break off the engagement with you? Shouldn't you be very angry? Then you said, don't bully a young lady who is poor. The river flows east for 30 years, and the river flows west for 30 years. Wang Xian was a little stunned when he saw how happy she was. Why didn't she play by the rules? Hee, I've only met that guy once or twice. I don't like him either. It was all my father's engagement when I was young. I'm even happy that he came to break off the engagement. The young girl said softly. It's just that my father and grandfather are a little angry. They said that it's not good for a girl's reputation, and it will also have a great impact on our family. Following that, the young girl spoke in a low voice. Wang Xian nodded his head speechlessly. Although the young girl's reaction was abnormal, her family's reaction was still quite normal. After all, if others came to break off the engagement, it would be a great insult to their family. It would also be bad for the young girl's reputation in the future. By the way, my name is Hu Yen. You can just call me by this name from now on. Hu Yen continued to speak to Wang Xian. He nodded his head and gained a little understanding of Hu Yen and the fox-patterned celestial race. A family that was born from the transformation of a divine beast and a human girl was not uncommon in the boundless galaxy. However, this was the first time Wang Xian had seen a young fox girl. She had a good figure and was filled with charm. Even the legendary Daji's appearance was just so. Little brother. Following Hu Yen's father, they came to the front of a hall on the mountain peak. The middle-aged man suddenly turned his head to look at Wang Xian. Please speak. Wang Xian nodded and replied, "My daughter saved your life. When it's time for you to repay her later, I hope you can act according to the situation in the hall." Suddenly, the middle-aged man spoke to Wang Xian. Wang Xian was a little stunned by his words. The young girl at the side also looked at her father in puzzlement. However, before they could speak, the skinny middle-aged man walked into the main hall with a cold expression on his face. "Ah, Brother Hu Fei is here. My niece is here too." Just as he walked into the main hall, a loud laughter was heard. Wang Xian looked over and saw more than 20 people standing on the left. They were dressed in green, and the person who spoke was a middle-aged man who was holding a wooden scepter. Beside the middle-aged man was a young man wearing a green straw hat and green clothes. The young man looked handsome and did not seem to be bothered. At this moment, a lady dressed in purple with a tiger's head embroidered on her chest was holding onto the young man's arm. When she saw Hu Yen-er and the rest arriving, she raised her head slightly and stared at Hu Yen-er provocatively. There were about 30 to 40 people standing on the right. Their faces were filled with anger. In the middle, an old man and a middle-aged man with a tiger's head embroidered on their bodies were sitting there. "Father!" When Hu Fei saw this scene, his expression turned slightly ugly. He ignored the middle-aged man and directly bowed to the old man who was sitting there. "Grandfather!" Hu Yen-er also immediately called out. Chapter 2168. 2168. Yes. The old man in the center nodded with a gloomy face when he saw Hu Yen-er and the others arrive. "Since you're here, just say what you want to say." The middle-aged man sitting next to the old man in the center said faintly, "Brother Hu Fei, I'm really sorry about what happened this time. My son and Princess Tian Ran fell in love with each other at first sight. As parents, we can't force them to stop the marriage between our son and your beloved. As for the marriage between our son and your beloved in the past, I think we should just drop it. This is the marriage contract from back then." The middle-aged man on the left took out the marriage contract with a smile on his face and said with a smile, "Marriage cannot be forced. Since young Tian is so outstanding, there will naturally be better choices." As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the girl holding the young man's arm said with a smile on her face. When Hu Fei heard their words, his expression changed slightly. "My Hu Fei's daughter is very outstanding," he said coldly with a sullen face. "Xiaodian, do you think she is outstanding or I am outstanding? Tell me." When the girl heard Hu Fei's words, she raised her head slightly and shook Gu Xiaoyan's arm as she said softly, "Naturally, you are more outstanding. How can the other girls compare to you?" Gu Xiaoyan hurriedly said. He swept a glance at Hu Yen-er as his eyes flashed with a burning desire. However, he immediately lowered his head and coaxed the woman. In terms of beauty, no one in the world could compare to Hu Yen-er from the Hu-Wen celestial race. However, in terms of talent and background, Tian Ran was even more powerful. He knew how to choose. The ancient Orchid Divine sect would also make him choose. When Hu Yen-er heard their words, her small face turned cold as she snorted. "Hee, Brother Hu Fei, accept it." The middle-aged man looked at Hu Fei and said indifferently. Previously, their ancient Orchid Divine sect had privately discussed the engagement with the Foxmark Divine clan. However, how could the Foxmark Divine clan agree? This was related to their family clan's humiliation and Hu Yen-er's reputation. They had directly rejected it. But this time, they had brought Princess Tian Ran and Princess Tian Ran had brought experts over. Even if the Foxmark Divine clan didn't agree, they had to agree. Back then, it was you who said you wanted to form an alliance through marriage. Now, it's you who want to break the contract. The ancient Orchid Divine sect has gone a little too far. The old man sitting at the front in the middle said with a cold expression. "Elder Hu, the ancient Orchid Divine sect might have made a mistake this time, but we can't joke about our child's marriage. When the time comes, our Royal Highness will send some gifts as compensation." The middle-aged man beside him said indifferently. "Compensation? How can my sister's reputation be compensated? Without waiting for the elder to speak, a young man in the main hall spoke with a face full of anger. Impudent! How can Commander Lien speak when you have the right to speak? On the other side, a middle-aged man shouted at the young man. Ha! Commander Lien glanced at the young man and said with a faint smile. Ha! Everyone, don't quarrel. Don't quarrel. It's just a small matter. Isn't it just a matter of marriage? It's just an engagement. At this moment, Hu Fei, who was standing in the center, suddenly took a deep breath. He forced a smile and said, Father! Oh! The members of the Fox-Mark Divine clan were startled. They looked at Hu Fei in astonishment. Even the elder and Hu Yenner on the stage looked on in astonishment. Such a matter was no small matter to a family clan like theirs. Princess Tian ran harumphed when she heard Hu Fei's words. A satisfied expression appeared on her face. Hee, I won't hide it from everyone from the ancient Orchid Divine sect. Even if all of you don't come today, we might have to make a trip to your place. My daughter, Hu Fei, believes that no one in the entire hidden tiger planet can compare to her beauty. She is the apple of my eye. Naturally, she will marry an outstanding young man who satisfies me. You can tear up this marriage contract directly. This is a copy of ours. Xiao Xian, come, tear it up. This time, it will save us a lot of trouble. Hu Fei was all smiles as he spoke. He took out a marriage contract from his interspatial ring and walked to Wang Xian, handing it to him. Little brother, my daughter saved your life. You have seen the current situation. My daughter and the reputation of the Huan celestial race cannot be ruined. You can take her place for now. After a period of time, I will let my daughter declare that she is not suitable for you. This way, my daughter's reputation will not be tarnished. This is your gratitude for saving my daughter's life. Hu Fei was standing opposite Wang Xian. As she handed over the marriage contract, she transmitted her voice to him. This? Wang Xian was a little dazed. He looked at the thin middle-aged man in front of him with a stunned expression. Father! Hu Yan was obviously stunned as well. She immediately called out to her father in a low voice. Hu Fei looked at her daughter. It was obvious that she was transmitting her voice to him. Old fox, what a fuck. Wang Xian looked at this scene in a daze. Fuck, only an old fox would be able to think of this. You are here to break off the engagement. All right, I will also announce that I have broken off the engagement. I will also announce that I have found a son-in-law that I am more satisfied with on the spot. What a fuck. If the parties involved in breaking off the engagement in those novels had such an awesome father, there wouldn't be any 3-year agreement. The river flows east for 30 years and the river flows west for 30 years. It seemed that Hu Yan wasn't the only one who didn't play by the rules when it came to the annulment of the marriage. Hu Yan-er's father didn't play by the rules either. Wang Xian looked at Hu Yan-er beside him and noticed that her delicate face was constantly changing. Hee. Wang Xian smiled speechlessly and tore the marriage contract in his hand gently. He already owed her a favor. It was good to return it. As for the reputation issues such as being dumped or divorced, he didn't really care about them. At this moment, everyone from the ancient Orchid Divine sect was stunned when they saw this scene. Their eyes were fixed on Wang Xian as their expressions kept changing. Good, what a good Hu Fei. You guys are looking for a son-in-law in advance. The middle-aged man on the left said in a low voice with a slightly angry expression. What was this? They had come to break off the engagement, but in the end, the other party had already found a son-in-law for their daughter. Did that mean that before the engagement was broken off, their son had already been cheated on? If this were to spread out, their ancient Orchid Divine sect's reputation would be tarnished as well. What? Ancient Orchid Divine sect, you guys are allowed to find a good daughter-in-law, but I, Hu Fei, am not allowed to find a good son-in-law. Ha! Hu Fei immediately laughed out loud when he saw their defeated expressions. When Hu Yan-er's elder brother saw this scene, the corners of his mouth twitched. The eyes of the elder on the stage flickered as a faint smile appeared on his face. In such a situation, even the princess and experts of the prince's manor could not say anything. Hu Fei, are you deliberately making our ancient orchid divine sect look bad? The expressions of the more than 20 people from the ancient orchid divine sect did not look good as the middle-aged man in the lead said in a deep voice. It's just the two of you coming. Hu Fei said coldly as they went head-to-head. You. The middle-aged man's face turned gloomy as his expression changed. Hu Fei, you said that this young man is more satisfactory to you. Then, I want to see just how big the gap is between my son and this young man who is satisfactory to you. Also, let my son know the gap between us. Suddenly, the corner of the middle-aged man's mouth slightly curled up as he said in a low voice with an ice-cold face. Chapter 2169. 2169. I don't need to fight you. Let me know the difference between you and me. The young man from the ancient orchid divine sect shouted. His eyes were fixed on Wang Xian, and his eyes were sparkling. When everyone heard the middle-aged man's words, they were stunned for a moment. Then, they started to laugh along with the people from the ancient orchid divine sect. Their eyes were also sparkling. Gu Shaoan was the young master of the ancient orchid divine sect. He possessed the best resources, and his talent was equally outstanding. He was well known throughout the entire hidden tiger planet. Now, he was only in his 30s, but he already had a cultivation base at the 6th level demigod realm. In the entire planet, there were not many youths who were stronger than him. Furthermore, these youths who were stronger than him were all famous figures. This youth in front of him was definitely not one of them. If Gu Shaotian were to ruthlessly humiliate him, it would be tantamount to saying that Gu Shaotian had ruthlessly humiliated the son-in-law of the Foxvein divine race. Hu Fei was blind. This way, their ancient orchid divine sect would be able to vent their anger. It would also cause the reputation of the Foxvein divine race to be tarnished. Killing two birds with one stone. That's right. Uncle Hu Fei's foresight has always impressed me. Now that Uncle Hu Fei has found a son-in-law that satisfies him, I believe that it is something that I, Gu Shan, cannot compare to. In that case, I would like to seek advice from this friend of mine. Let me see how big the gap is between you and this friend. Gu Shaotian heard his father's words and immediately walked out. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Wang Xian. That's right. Naturally, all of you have said that your daughter is unparalleled in the world. I would like to see how your son-in-law can compare to Xiao Tian. Princess Tian Ran, who was holding on to Gu Shaoyan's arm, curled her lips slightly. She stared at Hu Yen provocatively. No, he hasn't recovered from his injuries. Hu Yen-er's expression changed slightly when she saw this scene. She immediately said, "Let's talk about this matter when we have the time." Hu Fei's expression also changed slightly when he saw this. He immediately said, although he could sense that Wang Xian's strength had already reached the demigod realm, there should still be a gap between him and Gu Shaotian. If they were to really spar, Gu Shaotian would definitely not let go of a chance to humiliate Wang Xian. He would also embarrass the fox-patterned celestial race. Since the matter has been resolved, everyone, please return. The old man sitting in the front also frowned slightly and said faintly. He had never met Wang Xian before. At this moment, he also understood that this might be a young man whom his son had randomly found. There was naturally a huge gap between a young man that was randomly found and the young sect master of the ancient orchid divine sect. But he will be a direct descendant of your fox-patterned divine clan in the future. He doesn't even dare to spar with you. Or are you afraid that he will lose too miserably? As soon as the old man finished his sentence, Princess Tian Ran immediately raised her head and said, "Hee, it's good for young people to spar with each other. What kind of man are you if you are afraid?" The middle-aged man beside the old man said slowly. He picked up the teacup beside him and took a sip. "Uncle Hu Fei, is your son-in-law not strong enough? If that's the case, I can give him an arm." Gu Xiaotian took 2 steps forward and slowly placed an arm behind his back. Provocation, a blatant provocation. Hu Fei's expression was a little ugly. He looked at Wang Xian. He's injured. Let's not spar with him. Hu Yan looked at Wang Xian and whispered. If you still don't agree, then your Huan celestial race really has poor taste in finding such a useless son-in-law. The middle-aged man on the left mocked. Father, there's another possibility. The other party has heard of my name and doesn't dare to make a move. Gu Xiaotian raised his head slightly and stared at Wang Xian with disdain. You don't dare to make a move. Wang Xian, who had been standing there, swept his gaze across the people from the ancient Orchid Divine sect and landed on Gu Xiaotian. He smiled faintly. He took 2 steps forward indifferently. Wang Xian, you have just woken up. Your injuries are not yet. It's all right. Although your injuries have not recovered, I can still deal with him. Hu Yan'er said to Wang Xian with some worry. Before she could say anything, she was interrupted by him. Can you do it? Don't go too far. Hu Fei looked at Wang Xian with an ugly expression when she saw that they had reached this stage. Then she said to Gu Xiaoyu, swords and sabers have no eyes. If we really hurt this friend, or if he were to kneel here, that nephew wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Gu Xiaotian said with a smile. Xiaolun, you have to give this uncle of yours some face. It wasn't easy for him to find a son-in-law that he was satisfied with. It wouldn't be good if he was embarrassed. The middle-aged man laughed heartily at the side. Xiaolun, let him know what a proud son of heaven is. Princess Tianran looked at Gu Xiaoan with adoration and said with her head slightly raised. Don't worry. Gu Xiaotian walked slowly to the center of the hall. He raised his head slightly and gestured to Wang Xian. Oh no, he might not be a match for Gu Xiaoan. Sigh, Gu Xiaoyan's influence is ranked among the younger generation. When the members of the fox-striped race saw this scene, they shook their heads secretly. A hint of helplessness could be seen on their faces. Although they didn't know why Wang Xian had suddenly appeared, they weren't optimistic about this battle. I'll let you make the first move. Gu Xiaotian followed with one hand and held a wooden saber in the other. He pointed the saber at Wang Xian provocatively. It's over, it's over. Hu Yan'er covered her eyes and didn't dare to look at this scene. She mumbled to herself. I'll let you make the first move. Otherwise, you won't have a chance. Wang Xian walked slowly to the center and looked at Gu Xiaotian indifferently. Interesting, interesting. You're the most arrogant fellow I've ever seen. Since you want me to make the first move, then kneel down. Gu Xiaotian revealed a sullen expression when he heard Wang Xian's words. He spoke with a cold expression. With a wave of the wooden saber in his hand, a wooden saber condensed from wood attribute was slashed towards Wang Xian's knee. Be careful. Hu Yan'er's voice sounded from the side. On the left, everyone from the ancient Orchid Divine sect was smiling as they watched this scene. Their eyes were filled with ridicule. Wang Xian took a glance at the wooden saber condensed from wood attribute. Strangely, his gaze dissipated before it even reached him. The instant the wooden blade dissipated, Gu Xiaoan was slightly stunned. He looked at Wang Xian in astonishment and their eyes met. At this moment, he felt an extremely terrifying pressure coming towards him. This pressure was as powerful as a prison. He was facing an extremely terrifying god of death who was filled with killing intent. In an instant, his forehead was filled with cold sweat and his body was trembling violently. Plop! The next moment, under everyone's shocked gaze, he suddenly fell to the ground, his face full of fear and trembling. No, no, don't kill me, don't kill me. A terrified voice came from his mouth. His carefree voice resounded throughout the entire hall. Regardless of whether it was a real son-in-law or a fake son-in-law, he was extremely happy about today's matter. Especially since this son-in-law was so good at showing off. I don't need to make a move against you. That's right, our second brother and Yen still have good taste. Ha, only such a proud son of heaven is worthy of Yen. No one else is worthy of her. The members of the fox-traced celestial race were also laughing excitedly. As they spoke, they looked at the members of the ancient orchid divine sect mockingly. What did you do to Xiaoyun? Princess Tian Ran revealed an angry expression when she heard Wang Xian and the rest's mocking words. She pointed at Wang Xian and questioned him with a flushed face. A defeat is a defeat. Wang Xian looked at Princess Tian Ran indifferently and said calmly. You. Princess Tian Ran choked slightly. Her eyes were filled with fury. Phew, since Xiaonan has lost to you, I would like to challenge Miss Hu Yen. I want to let Xiao Tian know that he didn't choose the wrong person. Her gaze turned cold as she looked in Hu Yenger's direction and said coldly. Princess Tian Ran not only had a powerful background, but she was also one of the top beauties in the entire hidden tiger planet. Gu Xiaotian had suffered a loss at the hands of Wang Xian. She wanted to get him back. Princess Tian Ran, our Yen is not your match. Today is the matter between us and the ancient orchid divine sect. Now that the matter has been settled, we will have to send our guests off. When the elder in the middle heard Princess Tian Ran's words, he immediately spoke up. Hu Yen was indeed no match for Princess Tian Ran. In addition to Princess Tian Ran's background, he might as well just admit defeat. Admitting defeat was not shameful. Hu Yen saw Princess Tian Ran's provocation and pouted her lips in slight dissatisfaction. However, when she saw Gu Xiaotian's pale face beside her, her mood turned bad again. Let's go. The middle-aged man from the ancient orchid divine sect let out an embarrassed growl and turned around to walk out. It was even more shameful to stay here. Tian Ran, let's go. Gu Xiaoan pulled Princess Tian Ran's arm and said softly. Princess Tian Ran was a little angry as she waved her hand and walked out with a gloomy expression. The middle-aged man who was sitting in front of her stood up slightly and walked out. When he passed by Wang Xian, he paused for a moment and sized him up. Then he left without saying anything. This is so satisfying. He actually came to our Huan celestial race to break off the engagement. In a while, I have to properly promote the ancient orchid divine sect. Seeing them leave, Hu Yen Air's brother said loudly with a face full of relief. This time I have to thank this little brother. Little brother is very strong. He should have used his aura to suppress Gu Xiaotian just now. If I'm not wrong, little brother should have at least the strength of a peak demigod. The old man in front also walked over with a smile on his face. His eyes were sparkling as he sized up Wang Xian. Old man, you have sharp eyes. Wang Xian nodded his head. His body was severely injured and he could only unleash the strength of the peak of half of his body. Peak of the demigod realm. This is a heaven's favorite. Peak of the demigod realm. This is unparalleled in the entire hidden tiger planet. When the people around the fox-striped celestial race heard their family head's words, they were shocked. In their entire clan, there were only 3 deity realm experts. They were at the peak of the demigod realm, which was considered the peak of the fox-pattern divine clan. Most importantly, the other party was young. Chapter 2171. 2171 on the peak of 217,110 days. He is actually a powerhouse at the peak of the demigod realm. A peak of the demigod realm in his 30s. He's so powerful. Hu Yen looked at Wang Xian in the main hall in astonishment. Her face was filled with astonishments. She had never expected that the young man whom she and her brother had saved would be so powerful. In the entire hidden tiger planet, he was definitely a top-notch existence. Yen, little brother Wang Xian's injuries have yet to recover. You should bring him back first. Also, go to the spirit medicine room and get 2 pills at the peak of the demigod realm to treat little brother's injuries. Hu Fei's eyes flickered as he looked at Wang Xian and instructed Hu Yen. It's father. Hu Yen-er nodded her head and looked at Wang Xian with a smile on her face. Let's go. Thank you for what happened today. If it weren't for you, we would have lost face. She said with a smile. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly and followed her to their residence. Hu Fei, who is this young man? As he watched Wang Xian leave, the elder in the middle walked over and asked with a twinkle in his eyes. Father, Yen-er and Xiao Ji found him in our Lin Tian. They brought him here when he was unconscious. Hu Fei shook her head and seemed to be in deep thought. Yes, grandfather. At that time, he fell into our Lin Tian's little sister and I brought him here. He seemed to have just woken up after being unconscious for almost a month. The young man named Xiao Ji immediately echoed. Such a young man has the strength of half a body. He must be the son of a big force. However, with his strength, he shouldn't be unknown. A middle-aged man frowned and said, I checked him with my bewitching technique. He has lost his memory. He only knows his name. He doesn't know anything else. Hu Fei said, Lost his memory? The old man pondered, if it were our Fox Vein God clan. Oh. Hearing his father's words, Hu Fei slightly raised his eyebrows. Logically speaking, a hero saves a beauty, and a beauty gives her body to him. Then, if a beauty saves a hero, it should be the same. He mumbled. However, when the people of the Fox Vein God clan heard his words, they were stunned and speechless. She is worthy of our little Yen. The old man nodded his head slowly. The rest of the people listened quietly at the side and did not dare to speak. Wang Xian, these 2 healing pills should be much better after you take them. In the courtyard at the foot of the mountain, Hu Yen-er walked over with 2 pills and handed them to him as she said with a smile. Okay. Wang Xian didn't reject her. He stretched out his hand and took them. How are you so powerful? Gu Xiaotian is so strong, yet he doesn't dare to attack you. He's at the peak of the demigod level. He's much stronger than me. How do you cultivate? You're only a few years older than me, yet you've reached the peak of the demigod level. I'm only at the first level of the demigod level now. Hu Yen-er looked at him with some envy. Don't you have the bloodline of the divine fox? Is it very difficult to cultivate? Wang Xian looked at her and asked curiously. Our bloodline is very thin. The difficulty of cultivation is about the same as that of an ordinary person. How do you cultivate? What attributes do you have? Can you teach me? If I want to be strong, I will beat Princess Tian Ran to the ground if she provokes me today. Hu Yen-er looked at him and asked repeatedly. She clenched her fists slightly. She had a long white tail with 3 lines on her cheeks. Her every action was charming. Her perfect figure of 1.6 meters was eye-catching. It was no wonder Hu Fei said that his daughter's looks were incomparable. If it's wood attribute, I can give you some pointers. Wang Xian looked at her and said faintly. You are also of the wood attribute? Our family has the method to condense Dharma idol and the records of our comprehension. However, it is very troublesome to fully comprehend it. I'm very stupid. My brother is already at the level of a demigod. The gap between us is too big. Hu Yen-er's eyes lit up as she pouted. I have a method that can help you improve quickly. However, you can't tell anyone. Wang Xian smiled at her. Really? I, Hu Yen, swear that I will never tell anyone. Hu Yen-er immediately came over and raised her palm in excitement. Miss. Son-in-law. At this moment, the woman's voice came from outside. Ha! Ha! Hu Yen-er was slightly stunned. Wang Xian looked at the woman in astonishment as well. Miss, Master said that the environment here is not good. He wants my son-in-law to move into the courtyard next to Miss. The woman didn't seem to notice their expressions. She walked over and said with a smile. He isn't, he was saved by me. Hu Yen-er's face turned red when she heard the woman's words. She quickly explained. What's wrong, Miss? Master said that he wants me to move my son-in-law to another place to live. I've also heard about what happened just now. I didn't expect my son-in-law to be so powerful. Good. The woman said to Wang Xian with a smile on her face. Didn't my father say that it was just? In an instant, Hu Yen-er's face turned even redder. Wang Xian, don't misunderstand. It should be my father's mistake. She was a little restrained and nervous and didn't know how to explain herself. I know. Your father has already said that he would need me to cooperate for a period of time. Wang Xian smiled and didn't think too much about it. Son-in-law, just come over with this old lady. There's everything there. You don't have to move anything. The old lady gestured to Wang Xian. It's better to live in the courtyard next to me. It's also much more convenient for you to teach me how to cultivate. Hu Yen-er bit her lips and suppressed the shyness in her heart as she spoke to him. I don't mind. I can live anywhere. Wang Xian nodded his head. Let's go, son-in-law and miss. The old lady said with a smile. Any chindo? Don't call me son-in-law in the future. No, the old master has instructed me not to call you son-in-law. My father. Hu Yen-er stomped her feet and walked at the front. Wang Xian followed behind her and smiled as he scanned his surroundings. The Huan celestial race was huge. They occupied dozens of mountain peaks, and each mountain peak was planted with all kinds of flowers and plants. This had a lot to do with the Huan celestial race's cultivation of the wood attribute. He followed the woman to the center of a mountain peak. There were a few courtyards halfway up the mountain. Son-in-law, this is it. From now on, this old woman will be in charge of your daily life. Just tell this old woman if there's anything. After entering the courtyard, there was a rockery inside. It was more than 10 times the size of the rockery at the foot of the mountain. Sorry for the trouble. Wang Xian nodded his head. At this moment, he realized that Hu Yen-er had already run away. He didn't know what to do. Wang Xian strolled around the courtyard and nodded his head in satisfaction. He came to a pavilion in the courtyard. He took out a cup of tea from the mother nest and brewed a cup himself. Chapter 2172. 2172 At the peak of 2172. The smoke of the tea was rising and the fragrance was pleasant. Wang Xian sat in the pavilion and sipped his tea. The tea entered his stomach and turned into dragon energy to nourish his entire body. Puff. My father only asked him to act as a temporary assistant. I can't let my imagination run wild. To cultivate. I came to look for him just to cultivate. That's right. Outside the courtyard, Hu Yen-er patted her little face. She took a deep breath and walked in. Wang Xian, do you have time? You promised to teach me how to cultivate. Hu Yen-er walked over and shouted towards the inside. Come over and have a seat first. Wang Xian waved at her. Are you drinking tea? The fruit wine of our Huan celestial race is very delicious. I'll bring you some later. Hu Yen-er looked at Wang Xian, who was sitting there enjoying his tea. She smiled and walked over to sit at the side. Have a cup. Wang Xian took out the teapot and poured her a cup. No, I don't like tea. How are your injuries? Hu Yen-er looked at him and asked with concern. It will take some time for you to fully recover. Drinking this cup of tea will be very beneficial to your cultivation. Wang Xian placed the tea beside Hu Yen. Spirit tea? Hu Yen-er took the tea curiously and looked inside. However, she did not sense the spiritual energy inside. She took a sip in confusion. Instantly, a faint fragrance of tea entered her mouth and spread throughout her body. She felt as though she was immersed in a dense wood attribute energy. What is this? A shocked expression appeared on her face. Focus on cultivating and comprehending. Wang Xian looked at Hu Yen-er and said. Hu Yen-er nodded her head heavily and closed her eyes hurriedly. But, in less than a minute, an aura of a breakthrough was emitted from his body. Wang Xian smiled faintly and took a sip of the tea. The tea was personally planted by the god of divine leaves. In the entire eternal divine leaves, only the god of divine leaves was qualified to drink it. The tea he had was given to him by Huar and Kair, who had taken it from their father. The value of the tea was self-evident. For a demigod level wood attributed cultivator to consume it, it was far superior to ordinary divine pills and miraculous medicines. It was not difficult for Hu Yen to directly gain enlightenment and increase her level. Buzz. Another 5 minutes passed, and Hu Yen's strength broke through again. It only took 6 minutes for her to advance from demigod level rank 1 to demigod level rank 3. Huff, puff. 10 minutes later, Hu Yen opened her eyes. Her entire body was exuding a strong vitality. Her small face was flushed red and filled with excitement. Unbelievable! I actually advanced by 2 levels. Oh my god, what kind of tea is this? It actually has such a terrifying effect. Hu Yen exclaimed at Wang Xian. Her eyes lit up. She drank all the remaining tea on the table and immediately sat down cross-legged. However, this time, her cultivation did not improve. Even so, Hu Yen stood up excitedly. Amazing, amazing! I'm now at the 3rd level of the demigod level. Wang Xian, thank you. She was jumping up and down as she said that. The tail behind her raised up as if she was very happy. The cultivation hasn't started yet. Wang Xian looked at her and said faintly, It hasn't started yet? This is already very impressive. Hu Yen was filled with shock as she stared at him with widened eyes. Sit here with your legs crossed. Wang Xian gestured to a seat at the side. Oh, okay. Hu Yen obediently sat cross-legged at the side. Wang Xian placed his arm on her shoulder and Hu Yen's body trembled. Focus, he said faintly. Following that, the aura of the ancestral tree and the majestic wood attribute enveloped her. In an instant, all kinds of blessings came to her heart and mind. The majestic wood attribute energy entered her body, causing the aura in her body to increase continuously. What is this? What a mysterious aura. This kid has many secrets in his body. At this moment, the elder who was in the incipient saint wings behind Wang Xian sensed the aura coming from Wang Xian's body and widened his eyes. No, I must think of a way to make this kid acknowledge me as his master. But this kid is more cunning. He is not easy to fool. Furthermore, he has 7 attributes and is blessed with great opportunities. I don't seem to be very attractive to him. The old man kept mumbling and scratching his head. I've broken through. I've broken through again. Half an hour later, Hu Yen's excited voice sounded. Wang Xian retracted his palm and exhaled. All right, that's all for today's cultivation. From now on, I'll help you cultivate for an hour every day. I'm going to recover from the injuries in my body. Wang Xian looked at her with a smile and said with a smile, Brother Wang Xian, you are simply too amazing. You are even more amazing than my father and grandfather. In less than an hour, I have already reached demigod level 4. Princess Tianran is only at demigod level 5. At this speed, I will be able to catch up to her very soon. Hu Yen could not help but hold onto Wang Xian's arm and shook it excitedly. Demigod level 5. If nothing goes wrong, I will be able to reach it tomorrow. I need to cultivate to recover from my injuries. Wang Xian said to her. You also need to cultivate, right? Then you should cultivate. I won't disturb you. Hu Yen let go of Wang Xian's arm and retreated to the side. She could not help but say happily, Okay. Wang Xian nodded and immediately sat cross-legged at the side. He began to recover from his internal injuries. Hu Yen saw Wang Xian entering a meditative state directly. She pouted and sat on the table at the side. She supported her chin with both hands and looked at Wang Xian with a silly smile. She didn't know whether she was laughing at her breakthrough or what she was laughing at. Time passed slowly. Wang Xian stayed in the courtyard every day to recover his strength. Hu Yen-er also went to his courtyard every day to drink tea and cultivate. Every day, after Wang Xian helped her cultivate for an hour, she would lie on the side and watch Wang Xian recover his strength. Brother Fei, our girl has been running to Wang Xian's courtyard every day for the past few days. Isn't it a little bad? In the courtyard next to Wang Xian's, a woman looked at Hu Fei and said with a frown. It's fine, madam. Anyway, everyone outside knows that Yen-er has a fiancé. There's nothing bad about it. Hu Fei shook his head with a smile. But didn't you say that this is just an act? The woman still felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. Madam, let's not get involved in Yen-er's matters. It wouldn't be bad if we can fake it and do it for real. Ha! Hu Fei laughed out loud. He would give his full support to his daughter if she could really find such an outstanding young man. Moreover, it would be even more perfect if that Wang Xian could marry into the Huan celestial race. If that kid dares to bully our Yen-er, I won't let him off. The woman shook her head and said helplessly. I've broken through again. At this moment, Hu Yen-er's excited voice sounded from the pavilion in Wang Xian's courtyard. Today was her 10th day of cultivation with Wang Xian, the peak of the demigod realm. The peak of the 10th day. Chapter 2173. 2173 2173 Fallen Celestial Island. 10 days. In just 10 days, Hu Yen-er's strength had risen to the peak of the demigod realm. This was something that Hu Yen-er did not dare to imagine. However, the truth was that she had reached this stage in just 10 days. Brother Wang Xian, you are simply too amazing. Hu Yen-er walked behind Wang Xian with a face full of excitement. She stretched out her hand and massaged Wang Xian's shoulder in a familiar manner. I'm at the peak of the godly state. With my current strength, I can be ranked in the top 10 even if I were to be placed in our clan. If my father and the rest knew about my strength, they would definitely drop their jaws in shock. If anyone dares to challenge me in the future, I will also raise my head slightly and stand there. I will be able to scare them to death by releasing my aura. Hu Yen-er narrowed her eyes slightly as her tail kept moving. When she said this, she couldn't help but laugh. Alright, don't be so smug. Next, I have to recover from my injuries. Wang Xian touched her hand and said with a smile. Hu Yen-er stood behind Wang Xian. When she saw him touching her hand, she lowered her head slightly with a smile on her face. Then you should cultivate first. I will bring you some delicious food. I will call for you in an hour. As Hu Yen-er spoke, she wagged her tail and hopped out of the courtyard. Wang Xian looked at her figure and smiled. Then he slowly closed his eyes. Miss, Master asked me to call for you. Hu Yen-er had just walked out of the courtyard when Auntie Qin walked over and spoke to her. Oh, what did my father call me for? Hu Yen-er asked in a good mood. Miss, the people from the main family are here. It seems like something big has happened. The woman replied. Oh, the people from the main family are here? Hu Yen-er was slightly taken aback. She immediately walked towards the main peak of the Huan celestial race. The Huan celestial race was a powerful celestial race in the Divine Tiger dynasty. The Huan celestial race on the Hidden Tiger planet was just a branch of the Huan celestial race. Their main family was located on the Divine Tiger planet. The entire Huan celestial race had more than 20 God Realm experts. They naturally couldn't neglect the arrival of the people from the main family. So many people? When Hu Yen-er arrived at the main peak and saw more than 1,000 people gathered in the hall, she was slightly surprised. She immediately walked over and came to her brother's side. Her gaze swept over them. There were 7 or 8 God Realm experts and a group of young generation members of the Fox Pattern Divine race. Hu Yen-er even had some impression of these young people. They were all the most outstanding disciples of the current generation of the Fox Pattern Divine race. Seeing Hu Yen-er enter, some people swept a glance over. This time, the fallen immortal God Island group has attracted countless experts and forces in the Central Star Area's western region. As a powerful God Lord level force from 1,000,000 years ago, it has an incomparably huge treasure inside. Our Fox Pattern Divine clan has decided to head there to seek opportunities. Your branch clan will lead the experts and disciples to follow us. Tomorrow, we will head there together with the Divine Tiger, Hidden Tiger Star Divine Dynasty's Imperial family and some other forces. In front of the Great Hall, an old man stood in the center and said to everyone, "It's the Great Elder." In front, Hu Yender's grandfather immediately nodded and replied, "This time, the forces heading to the God Tomb will reach a terrifying level. All disciples, don't disgrace our Fox Vein God clan." The Great Elder nodded and continued, "Great Elder, you must be tired from the journey. We will take you to a place to rest." Hu Yen stayed in the main hall to watch. Not long after, she led the experts and disciples of the main family out. "Brother, why are there so many people from the main family here?" "The God Tomb, the fallen immortal island, is at the junction of our western region and the central region. They just happened to pass by our planet." Hu Yen asked her brother in a low voice. Her brother replied, "Oh, no wonder." Hu Yen nodded. "Little Yen, come and receive the senior brothers and sisters from the main family. This time, you will follow them and learn more from them." At this moment, their father's voice sounded. "Yes, father." Hu Ji hurriedly nodded and walked towards the main family's disciples with a face full of smiles. "Hello, brothers and sisters. Take care of this little brother." Hu Ji walked over and cupped his hands with a face full of smiles. The group of young men from the main family nodded indifferently with a trace of arrogance on their faces. "This is little sister Yen, right? I haven't seen her for more than 10 years and she's getting more and more beautiful." Suddenly, a young man saw Hu Yen and his eyes lit up as he said with a smile, "Oh." Hu Yen looked at the young man and was slightly stunned before she quickly nodded her head. She had no impression of the other party. The young man's words attracted more than 200 disciples to look at Hu Yen. When they saw her face, the disciples' eyes sparkled with admiration. Some of the girls sized her up and felt a little jealous. "I'll have to trouble senior brother and senior sister to take care of me in the future," Hu Yen said politely. We're all family. What realm has sister Yen cultivated to?" A young man suddenly asked with a smile in the middle of the group of disciples. "My sister is a little mischievous. Right now, she's only at the first level of the demigod rank." Before Hu Yen could reply, Hu Ji had already helped her reply. "The first level of the demigod rank is a little too low. In the future, I can give you some pointers," the youth said indifferently. When the group of youths from the Huan celestial race heard his words, they gave him a sidelong glance. Some of the girls looked at Hu Yen with envy. Being beautiful had its benefits. "Thank you, senior brother." Hu Yen smiled and nodded. She didn't say anything else. Hu Ji and Hu Yen led the way and brought them to the reception peak. "Sister Hu Yen, we're new here. Take us around." The young man in the center looked at the courtyard in front of them and said to Hu Yen, "I'm sorry, I still have some things to do. Big brother, take senior brothers and sisters to have a look around." Hu Yen shook her head apologetically. She looked at the time and hurriedly walked over. Senior brothers and sisters, if you want to have a look around, I can take you there." Hu Ji hurriedly said. "There's no need," the youth said coldly, turning around and walking towards the courtyard. How interesting. Our great young master Hu Dongyang was actually rejected." A youth laughed loudly at the youth in the middle. Shut up. TSK, there are times when our great young master Hu Dongyang misses. It's really rare." Hu Ji, who was standing at the back, heard their words and shook his head. He knew the attraction of his younger sister. Such a situation was normal. "However, I'm afraid that my brother-in-law is going to be unlucky. I don't know if he can withstand it with his strength. Hu Ji muttered as he looked in the direction of his younger sister and smiled bitterly. At the back, a group of young men from the main clan of the Huan celestial race saw Hu Yen-er walking over. They were holding on to a young man with a happy look on their faces. They were slightly stunned. Hu Dongyang, I think he's already taken. A slightly plump young man teased the incomparably handsome Hu Dongyang. Shut up. Hu Dongyang's gaze swept across the fatty and his expression turned a little ugly. He walked straight towards Hu Yen-er and Wang Xian. Narrowing his eyes slightly, he locked onto Wang Xian who was beside Hu Yen-er. The corners of his cold mouth curled up slightly. He didn't go there for other reasons. He just didn't like him and wanted to teach him a lesson. He wanted to embarrass him. There's a good show to watch. The slightly plump young man looked at him as he walked over and teased him. The surrounding disciples of the fox-patterned celestial race looked over. There were more than a dozen of them following behind Hu Dongyang. Hu Dongyang and the rest are here. Hu Dongyang is the most outstanding disciple of our entire generation of the fox-patterned celestial race. His strength is at the peak of the half-body stage. Peak of the half-god stage. How enviable. Is he going to get to know Wang Xian? I think so. After all, Sister Hu Yen-er's fiancé is also at the peak of the half-god stage. It's only natural for powerhouses to get to know each other. Everyone whispered when they saw Hu Dongyang and the rest walking over with their heads slightly raised. Huh. However, their voices were clearly heard by Hu Dongyang and the rest. When they heard the words of a peak stage demigod, they were clearly stunned. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Even Hu Dongyang's pupils contracted slightly and his body stiffened. Senior brother Hu Dongyang, hello, senior brothers. Let me introduce you. This is my sister's fiancé, Wang Xian. He has the strength of a peak stage demigod. When Hu Ji saw them walking over, he raised his eyebrows and hurriedly introduced them. When Hu Yen-er heard her brother's introduction, she used her arm to touch his waist heavily. Her face was slightly red. Hee, I didn't expect to meet such a heaven's favorite on the hidden tiger planet. Hu Dongyang's expression changed as he looked at Wang Xian expressionlessly. Initially, he wanted to embarrass this kid. Now, he could only give up. He never expected that the other party had the strength of a peak stage demigod. Hello. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly at him. Let's go to the teleportation formation. At this moment, a voice was heard. The group of powerhouses in front of them flew straight into the sky. Hu Dongyang flew straight into the sky with a gloomy face. We've met a tough opponent. The chubby young man's teasing voice continued to ring out. All the disciples of the fox-patterned celestial race looked at Wang Xian, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. You are a femme fatale. I didn't expect your charm to be so great. Wang Xian looked at Hu Yen-er and said with a smile. Who is the femme fatale? I am the femme fatale. Hu Yen-er pouted in dissatisfaction. The two of them flew into the sky and followed a group of experts towards the teleportation formation. The teleportation formation was located in the northern royal city of the hidden tiger planet. It was located in the teleportation square of the northern royal city. When they arrived, more than 10,000 people had gathered in the square. A group of peak god realm experts was gathered in the center of the square. The members of the Fox-Mark Divine clan are here. There's a conflict between experts in the array on the other side of the teleportation array. The array is being repaired. It will take a while. An old man with a tiger's head embroidered on his chest looked at them from below and said with a smile. Then let's wait for a while. We're not in a hurry. The great elder of the Huan celestial race replied and the group flew over. It's them. However, beside the teleportation formation, a man and a woman were glaring at Wang Xian and Hu Yen-er with anger. Chapter 2175. 2175-2175 Killing Sword 2. 10 days ago, Gu Xiaotian and Princess Tian Ran went to the Huan celestial race to break off the engagement. In the end, they were humiliated and left with their tails between their legs. The news had already spread to the ears of all the major forces and disciples on the hidden tiger planet. Especially when Gu Xiaotian was scared to the ground by Hu Yen'er's fiancé and was trembling, the Huan celestial race spread the news without restraint. After that, when the disciples of the various forces received the news, their faces were filled with shock. After that, when Gu Xiaotian didn't come forward to defend himself, everyone was basically able to confirm that this matter was completely true. This caused Gu Xiaoan to be utterly humiliated. Along with that, Princess Tian Ran, who was on good terms with Gu Xiaotian, was also ridiculed by many people. They called him a boyfriend who picked up someone else and rejected him. When they found out about this matter, both of them were filled with anger. They held a deep grudge against Hu Yen'er and Wang Xian. Now that they saw Hu Yen'er and Wang Xian arriving, their expressions turned even uglier. "Let's wait here." At the front, Hu Dongyang said to the disciples of the Huan celestial race. In the Huan celestial race, Hu Dongyang was one of the best. Everyone had to obey his words. The chubby young man would not provoke him for no reason. In terms of strength, the chubby young man was inferior to Hu Dongyang. "Huh!" The group of people landed on the ground. Wang Xian sensed two hostile gazes and looked over. When he saw Gu Xiaotian and Princess Tian Ran, he gave them a faint smile. However, when the two of them saw Wang Xian's smile, they looked even more embarrassed. They thought he was provoking them. Which one is Hu Yen'er's fiancé now? It should be the young man with two horns beside Hu Yen'er. Is he the young man who caused Gu Xiaoyan to not even dare to make a move and just lay on the ground? At this moment, a series of discussions entered their ears. This made Gu Xiaoyan and Princess Tian Ran look even more embarrassed. Damnable fellow. Gu Xiaotian's gaze turned over as he growled in a low voice with a gloomy and cold expression. "Ichimich, you're not his match, so what's the use of being angry?" By the side, Princess Tian Ran coldly snorted at him with an unsightly expression. This caused Gu Xiaotian's expression to become even more unsightly. Tian Ran, with his strength at the peak of the demigod realm, none of the younger generation of our entire hidden tiger planet are his match. Gu Xiaoan lowered his head and said while clenching his fists. Princess Tian Ran's face was filled with unwillingness. "Hu Jianming is here. It seems like he will be going this time too." The fierce tiger beside Hu Jianming is simply too handsome. At this moment, surprised voices sounded one after another. Many of the surrounding disciples looked over. It was a burly young man with a strong back and a stocky waist. He seemed to be filled with a powerful aura. On his forehead, there was the word King. This word was not carved in the later stages, but it was already there. A tiger's tail swayed behind him. He held a sharp sword in his hand, and his bearing was extraordinary. Who is the young man beside him? In order to take care of that young man, Hu Jianming did not even ride on the fierce tiger. So familiar? Broken into a sword. That's right, broken into a sword. It's actually him. He came out of seclusion? A year ago, he became the disciple of the god of killing swords. At that time, even Hu Jianming wasn't able to become his master. He was the only one who succeeded. Discussions and shocked voices rang out, attracting the attention of all the surrounding disciples. Hu Jianming was the most outstanding young disciple of the hidden tiger planet. He was the son of the true heaven lord of the divine tiger dynasty and was once the strongest person on the hidden tiger planet. Duan Chengjian could be said to be the second strongest person on the hidden tiger planet. Other than Hu Jianming, he was the strongest. However, a year ago, Duan Chengjian and Hu Jianming became master of the life sword god. Hu Jianming didn't succeed. Instead, Duan Chengjian succeeded. The previous Duan Chengjian was a level 7 demigod. Now, he must be even stronger. In fact, from Hu Jianming's attitude, he shouldn't be any weaker than him. The number 1 and number 2 of our hidden tiger planet's young generation. TSKSK, this aura is something no one can compare to. Especially the broken sword. It's like a sharp sword at this moment, making people not dare to look directly at it. Some people sighed as they looked at the 2 young men walking over. With 4,000 to 5,000 disciples looking over, it naturally attracted the attention of the Fox Pattern Divine Clan's disciples. TSK, the number 1 and number 2 person on the hidden tiger planet, how strong can he be? He's at the peak of the demigod rank 7 and 8. The slightly plump youth looked over and said with slight disdain. The Fox Pattern Divine Clan's disciples looked over and also faintly smiled. The disciples of the main clan of the Fox Pattern Divine Clan really didn't think highly of the demigod rank 7 and 8. At the very least, many of them were stronger than them. How strong? In any case, they're much stronger than you, especially our senior Duan Chengjian. He's definitely very strong now. However, not far away from him, a girl with pretty good looks heard his words and looked at him. Seeing a slightly chubby young man with a fat foxtail, she said with some disdain. I'm dying of laughter. Fatty, even some people from the hidden tiger planet look down on you. Not far away, Hu Dongyang saw this scene and finally found an opportunity as he said mockingly. Fatty's face turned red as he stared fiercely at the girl. Little girl, watch your words, or I'll strip you naked. He said fiercely with a face full of anger. Damn Fatty, watch your words. A youth next to the girl heard his words and shouted at Fatty with an ice-cold face. When the young man finished speaking, Hu Dongyang, who was behind him, could not help but laugh out loud. Kid, I think you're courting death. I won't argue with women, but that doesn't mean I won't argue with a retard like you. Fatty's eyes revealed a fierce expression, and his body flashed, instantly appearing beside the young man. Peng! His fist instantly landed on the young man's face, causing him to fly backwards. When the girl saw the young man beside her fly backwards with his face covered in blood, she let out a cry of surprise. The girl's cry of surprise instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the surroundings. The thousands of disciples from various factions looked over, their faces filled with shock. In the center, when the experts and gods from various factions heard this voice, their gazes swept over. Young and impetuous, let those little fellows deal with it themselves. The first elder of the Fox Pattern Divine race looked over and said with a smile. Let the little kids play around. The experts from the hidden tiger planet's royal manners didn't mind and smiled. It was normal for disciples to have conflicts. Moreover, the rules of the Divine Tiger Dynasty forbade fighting. All the disciples knew clearly that it was not a big deal to suffer a little injury. Trash, how dare you provoke me? Fatty said with a cold face when he saw the young man flying backward. At the front, Hu Jianming and Duan Chengjian, who had just arrived, heard the exclamation and looked over. When he saw the young man lying on the ground, Duan Chengjian raised his eyebrows and immediately walked over. Chapter 2176. 2176 2176 Killing Sword 3. Who is that person? How can he be so arrogant? He has a fox tail, so of course he is a member of the Fox Mark Celestial race. However, those disciples don't seem to have seen him before. Could he be a disciple of the main clan of the Fox Mark Celestial race? That's possible. He should be a disciple of the Divine Tiger Star's Fox Mark Celestial race. Some people looked over and discussed in low voices. Oh, Duan Chengjian and the others have gone over. The ones who were injured are disciples of the Star God Academy. Although Duan Chengjian is a disciple of the Killing Sword God, he is still a student of the Star God Academy. Could it be that he wants to stand up for that young man? At this moment, when the surrounding people saw Duan Chengjian, Hu, and Jian Ming walking over, their faces revealed astonishment. Let's go over and greet cousin Jian Ming. Princess Tian Ran looked over, her eyes sparkling as she spoke to Gu Xiaotian. As the two spoke, they walked over. Senior Duan. Young Master Hu Jianming. Duan Chengjian and Hu Jianming walked over, and some of the surrounding disciples called out respectfully. Qing Yuan, are you all right? Duan Chengjian walked over to the young man lying on the ground and frowned as he looked. Senior Duan Duan Chengjian clearly knew the young man. The young man spat out his teeth. Clearly, Fatty didn't stay behind to guard the place. It's a bit heavy. Duan Chengjian looked over and said coldly. You dare to shout at me? This is already a light punishment. When Fatty heard his words, he said disdainfully. A disciple of the Fox Vein Divine Clan's patriarch. Hu Jianming's gaze swept over Fatty and the others as he frowned slightly. Hu Wei is right. Little girl, you better watch your words from now on. Hu Wei pointed at the girl who had just started talking about him and said coldly. I only said that you're inferior to young Master Jianming and Senior Duan Chengjian. You. The girl looked at Hu Wei and said with a pale face. Then let them compete with me. Hu Wei said with a proud face. He had a faction at the peak of the half-body realm. Although he had just stepped into it a few days ago, he was still at the peak of the half-body realm. He had the right to be proud. He naturally didn't care about a girl who provoked him. No wonder you're so arrogant. So you're a disciple of the main family of the Huwen celestial race. He has at least the strength of a level 9 demigod. It's not something that the disciples on our planet can compare to. The surrounding people looked at the proud Hu Wei and discussed in low voices. The disciples of the main family of the Huwen celestial race could only compare to the divine sons and goddesses of the divine Tiger dynasty's imperial family. It's them who have eyes but don't recognize Mount Tai. This brother, let's just give up now. Hu Jianming cupped his hands at Hu Wei and said, We are all from the same dynasty. I can't be bothered to argue with them. Hu Wei waved his hand and said magnanimously, We can't let this matter go like this. Suddenly, the corner of Duan Chengjian's mouth curled up. He stared at Hu Wei and said coldly, Oh. Hu Wei heard his provocation and raised his brows. Anger appeared on his face. He slowly narrowed his eyes and looked at Duan Chengjian. Brother Chengjian, are you confident that the opponent will be the head disciple of the Fox Vein Divine Clan? Hu Jianming frowned and asked him in a low voice. In the path of sword cultivation, the stronger you are, the stronger you will be. If you don't try, how will you know? If the opponent is only at the 8th or 9th rank, then he will only be SOSO. Duan Chengjian said indifferently, his eyes flashing with strong confidence. Oh. Hu Jianming was slightly startled, his eyes flickering as he looked at Duan Chengjian. Then Brother Chengjian, on behalf of our royal family, you can casually spar. Okay. Duan Chengjian smiled and nodded, his gaze slowly turning towards Hu Wei as he slightly raised his head. After cultivating for more than a year, I can also test my own strength. He said indifferently. He was a member of the Divine Tiger dynasty, and now he represented the Hidden Tiger Planet's royal family. Even if he faced the Divine Tiger dynasty's half of the skies Huwen celestial race, he wasn't the slightest bit afraid. Moreover, his master also had powerful strength. Good. A small hidden tiger planet. I want to see what kind of sword cultivator exists. Hearing his provocation, Hu Wei's face revealed a cold voice. Unfortunately, I'm not at the 8th or 9th rank. As he spoke slowly, a power that belonged to the peak of the demigod realm was emitted from his body. What? Peak of the demigod realm? Hiss, it's actually the strength of a peak of the demigod realm. As expected of the disciple of the main family of the Fox Pattern Divine Clan. So powerful. When everyone sensed the aura from Hu Wei's body, their expressions changed slightly, and one by one, they retreated. A person from the Hidden Tiger Planet wants to provoke the elite disciples of our Fox Pattern Divine Clan. He's really courting death. Some disciples of the Fox Pattern Divine race sneered when they saw the shocked expressions of the people around them. Cousin, is Duan Qingjian a match for that young man from the fox pattern divine race? Princess Tian Ran walked to Hu Jianming's side and asked in a low voice. I don't know, but Duan Qingjian is already stronger than me. Hu Jianming said in a low voice. Is that so? Princess Tian Ran's face was filled with awe as she looked at Duan Qingjian with sparkling eyes. Hee, peak stage demigod. That's what makes it interesting. However, I only need 3 moves to defeat you. Duan Qingjian stared at Hu Wei and said coldly. Clang! The sharp sword behind him appeared in his hand, and he stood there like a sharp sword. The sharp edge was concealed, and one could not see his actual body clearly. Haha, 3 moves to defeat me? With just you? Hu Wei laughed coldly, and a magical little tree appeared in his hand. His palm dragged the little tree, and he stared coldly at the broken sword. The little tree emitted a resplendent green light, and its branches swayed. First sword. Charge! The broken sword did not hesitate at all, and the long sword in his hand directly stabbed towards Hu Wei. Wait a moment, I'll make you kneel here. Hu Wei's palm shook, and the branches directly coiled towards the sharp sword. Second sword, return. The first sword had just been released, and Duan Qingjian once again lightly shouted. Behind Hu Wei, a returning sword appeared out of thin air and attacked him. He was slightly startled, but the small tree branches grew crazily and surrounded him. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, the killing swords had already arrived. The tree branches welcomed them one by one. However, what shocked Ling Hu Wei and the fox-marked divine race was that the tree branches were directly cut off. Hu Wei's expression changed slightly. Countless tree branches gathered together and attacked the 2 sharp swords like venomous snakes. 10,000 swords. At this moment, the cold voice of the broken sword rang out again. Tens of thousands of sharp swords hovered in the air around Hu Wei. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Half of the sharp swords were heading straight for Hu Wei. Oh no! Hu Wei's expression changed drastically when he saw this scene. So powerful! Everyone around him was shocked when they saw Wang Xian's attack. Bang, bang, bang. The sharp swords landed on the branches and quickly sliced them apart. I've lost. Hu Wei, who had a hint of a humiliated voice, growled in a low voice with an embarrassed expression. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.